I think I started working in media when I was 17 or 18, so I was very young. Definitely, like, I remember like one of my first interviews, like working with a team, like, you know, they offered me a White Claw when I come in for the meeting, and I'm like, oh
like,
yeah, I'm 17. So yeah, this is always where I like start out, and I pick my very, like, the beginning and the end are always very like specific to me. What happens in the middle, I might like move around. I might do start to finish. I really like creating it as a storyboard, start to finish.
Through this podcast, I also come to realize that a lot of times people that aren't even spiritual, they have ideas and connections to things they don't even realize are spiritual.
Right.
We talk a lot about flow states, and I talk a lot about math with people, about like math and nature. And to me, those things are divine. Okay, you don't have to put it in the prism of spirituality and divinity, because like whatever, that's just like words. But when you think about like the ineffable truth about things and how they're so powerful and so something that we can't explain, that to me is belief. Welcome to the Visual Cast. I'm your host, Alon Hammer, aka Rem. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we interview some of the most unique, interesting, high-level, and exciting artists from all over the world. Entering into Season 2, we will be starting a monthly live stream to our paid subscribers. To join in on the live stream with Q&As, polls, and some surprises, click on the join button below. Your subscription will massively support our channel and bring us further to creating a community of like-minded individuals who love, create, and immerse themselves with the visual arts and the visual world. For those unable to join financially, don't worry. The episode, like all of our episodes, will be available on Thursdays for everyone to watch. And if you want to support us, like and subscribe and share with anybody you think will enjoy the podcast. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Now, without any further ado, here's the Visual Cast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Alrighty, welcome to the Visual Cast. Very excited by today's guest. Super awesome and talented, up and coming. I guess not already kind of coming already VJ. And she's really super cool and does really awesome things for the community and has really awesome messaging, and her visuals are dope as fuck. So welcome to the podcast, Stefani Bucher.
Thank you. Hello.
How's it going? I'm happy we got to do this.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm very excited. This is super exciting. I'm not used to like my face being on the video. It's usually my visuals, so I'm gonna have to get used to that. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, you have a very nice face, so it's evening out our kind of two windows
my
here.
Hair today.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Well, let's just jump right into it, because you have some, your Instagram, I was telling you before, is really awesome because it's full of kind of really killer visuals that you have, but also it kind of shows a lot of your personal story and kind of like where you are and what you're doing. I love this. Look at all these boys here. Look at all these boys with this beautiful girl right there. What would they be doing there without you? Come on. I love this visual of the waterfalls and crying. I love that. It's such a great visual, imagery. And I kind of wanted to kind of start off with less about your visuals per se and more about you as kind of like somebody who, grew up in the partying kind of high school thing, as we all did, I guess. But, it must be kind of a trip to kind of be a high schooler partying, going to concerts, going to festivals, and all of a sudden now you're in a career of visuals. What is that like, kind of coming from that place and being in this, in in this place now.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. Like, I think about where I was just like 5 years ago, and like the transformation has been like insane. I think like when I first started going to festivals, I always kind of felt like, what am I doing here? Like, what, like, I'm dancing around, I'm having fun with my friends, but like, I don't like, I felt like I wanted to be a part of it from the start. Like, I almost had something to offer. Like, I was just so authentically myself in those situations that I
Beautiful.
felt like, yeah, I felt like I kind of belonged in the community and might have had something to share. I've always kind of had art as an outlet. It definitely wasn't like my immediate direction in high school, but it was definitely always there for me and always consistent. It was like the one thing in my life that I always knew that I had a talent in. But of course, like growing up, I went to a private Catholic school and grew up in a
Ooh.
pretty conservative, like strict household. So that like partying, like festival environment was definitely my escape from like this high pressure like lifestyle at home. And I definitely appreciate now like my parents being so strict, because I do feel like like instill that discipline that not a lot of people can like hold
Wow.
while working in the industry. It's like a very distracting game. So I do appreciate like the blend of like my lifestyle at home and then me finding this whole other world where I really did fit in, because I do think they blended like in the best way possible. Because you definitely can get, especially I think I started working in media when I was 17 or 18, so I was
Wow.
very young. Definitely, like I remember like one of my first interviews, like working with a team, like they offered me a White Claw when I come in for the meeting, and I'm like,
You're
oh
like,
yeah, I'm 17, like I can't drink that. And they're like, oh
that's
shit, and I'm like,
awesome.
oh, I'm just fucking with you guys, like it's fine, I'll have one. But yeah,
Yeah,
it
I'll
definitely
drink.
like I was definitely like very intrigued by the industry at a very young age. And I think as soon as I like kind of found friends that were already like making music and making art, and they were 4 or 5 years older than me, I just really started hanging out with them and figuring out how I could be more of a part of the party and like
Right, right.
provide this conscious space for people to have fun, instead of necessarily going out and partying every time. Because I wanted to be a
That's
part of it
awesome.
every weekend, and that'll burn you out if you're partying every weekend. So you got to find a way
For
to,
sure.
yeah.
It's so interesting. I have such a similar kind of story. You're just kind of like you're engrossed by this world and you love it so much, and you want to be part of it. And like you said, like okay, you could be a promoter, you could be like a photographer. There's so many. You could be a DJ, right? Like there's so many different avenues. But when you're
Hmm.
somebody that's inclined in a certain direction, then it's like, well, I can be an artist. Like I am good at this or that, and I have an inkling or a talent or an enjoyment around this kind of space. So why not focus on that? And then it really gives you like a way to be part of this whole community, and like you said, like
Right.
not only be part of it, but also impact it in such a strong way, right? Like your voice is now a message. Your message is now gonna make people elevated and healed and have a better time, and hopefully gain something out of it. So that's awesome. I really love that kind of origin, and you know I in the most polite way possible, like it's really cool that you went from just being like a kid partying to being like, I want
Hmm.
more responsibility. I don't want to just be partying every weekend, and no shade to people that do that, like whatever, that's like totally everybody's path, but like you actually had like a little bit of a higher understanding that you wanted to not only be part of this scene but also like be the scene, you know
Right.
which is really like an elevated and mature way of looking at things. So I really awesome. That's really awesome. Um,
Thank you.
Speaking about your upbringing, that's so interesting that you grew up in a kind of a more conservative upbringing. Me too. So we have very similar origin stories. And yeah, and parties are like this escape, right? Like kind of like, this strict kind of focused kind of mentality, dogmatic kind of expression, and all of a sudden you're in this like self-expression heaven where anybody could be anything and you could say whatever you want, you
Right.
could do whatever you want, and nobody's judging you. So yeah, I totally see the allure and power in that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about like growing up in Florida and kind of like when did you almost discover yourself as an artist? Like, I know you went to art school, and I did see that you grew up always with cameras and had this affinity to like to take pictures or videos. So yeah, just give us a little bit about that. Like I would love to hear like, what was like growing up in this household? When did you kind of figure out that you wanted to go to art school, and how did that all kind of come to fruition?
Yeah, I think well, I guess my first like earliest artist memory was like preschool, kindergarten. I
Nice.
dressed up as an artist for um the when I grow up, like what I want to be day.
Mm.
And I remember like specifically always like in preschool playing like with Play-Doh, and our teacher would like, give us all like one of the tubes. So you got like one color to build what you wanted. And like as soon as the teacher would like walk away, I would steal the other kids' Play-Dohs or like parts of it because I wanted to like create something with more colors, and I saw what they were doing and I was like watch what I'm doing, you could do this. And then the teacher would come back and be like, wow, that's really awesome, but like Steph, like stop taking like other kids like Play-Doh. And I would just be like, well, what I'm doing is better, like I'm just trying to show them, they're
I
thinking
love
so
that.
small, look at what we could make together if we all put it
Mm.
together. And I think
Wow.
like from those were my first like memories as, having like the artist outlet. But
Mm-hmm.
like when I was a kid, my main gig, I would say back then, was I was a gymnast. And
Oh wow.
once, yeah, that was like fully committed to, I guess that was like my entire world when I was younger, and was traveling like every weekend for competitions. And yeah, I got to go like pretty much all over the nation and out of the country a few times for that. So that was like my life, my main focus. I was such an athlete. And then I started getting injured around the time I turned
Oh
like
no.
14, 15, is when that sport will really get you when you're at like the high level 10, like elite level. It's like
Mm.
just so dangerous. So I actually fractured my lower back right
Oh
above my
shit.
pelvis. Yeah, when I was 14, and was out for like a bunch of months. And that's kind of when I really realized that I started turning to art. Like when I didn't have like, there was just always so much emotions going in my head as a
Mm.
like teenager, and like even younger than that, there was a lot going on at home. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like my outlet of gymnastics and, just being outside of the house was very healthy for me. So once I got injured and almost became like bedroom locked at some point, it was then that I really found like drawing and painting as like a huge outlet. And then
Wow.
about a year later or 2 years later, after healing from that, is when I had my career ending injury. I tore my Achilles and had to have a surgery, had to have a second surgery like
Damn.
another year later. And that
I
was
mean the
like
fact
a 4 year recovery. And
shit.
that's
I mean
when
the fact that
art
you
became
went back
like,
to like
yeah, I don't know
gymnastics
why.
after you fractured your back, that's like that's crazy.
Yeah, I had this
You must have
like,
been really good.
yeah, I loved it. It was awesome. It was like the only thing that gave me like a sense of calm and rush. I
Mm.
don't know. It was just like I was a very high energy kid, and
Mm-hmm.
both my parents were pretty sick growing up. So it was like not the best environment for me to be home around all of that all the time.
Mm.
So going and like doing these high intensity sports was like the only way I could get out all these like crazy emotions I didn't really
Mm.
understand at the time. And that is really like, I think I started expressing myself through my art. And it was really more like painting, photography back then. When I, got into high school, that's when I got my first iPhone. And that's when like photography became like a huge passion. Like having like that accessible camera actually led me to wanting to like get into more, like buying up like my first Canon. And yeah, it was kind of like right around that like 16-year-old age that I was like, oh, gymnastics is not for life. I need to like, you know, have something else that's like permanent, that can't leave, like no matter what.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, I want to definitely get into the second part of that because I feel like it's you know, you got the camera now, what's next? But
Yeah.
just as a side thing, it's so interesting to hear you say like you know, that gymnastics and kind of this outlet, this physical outlet, this high octane kind of like high pressure, high exertion kind of outlet was really healthy for you as a kid. This is like a weird one, but is there any similarities to like VJing, like being performing live? Is there like something about it that kind of connects in it in some way for you?
I would say absolutely. I would say
Mm,
it's definitely like, you know, it's not as physically demanding, but in a way
right,
it is like as demanding, like having to have the discipline like on your
right.
mind and body to like sleep around the clock when you're working a lot of like different events all over the country. Having to keep your body like in check and your mental health in check is like a huge thing for me. You know, like in gymnastics, like we train skills. We don't like just go out and like throw something crazy. Like I try to never like put myself in a situation where like I'm just sending it somewhere and I don't know if I, you know, I am very like official with like contracts and making sure I'm getting taken care of, because I used to be young and would just like go across the country, whatever. And now I'm realizing like, yeah, this is like a business. It's more serious. Like there's a lot of things that I've had to like separate, but I
Mm,
feel like my brain kind of did that naturally because I have been used to, you know, that type of disciplined lifestyle.
wow.
I think it's yeah, it's definitely about like, I think a lot of other sports growing up is like a very team effort, and
Mm-hmm.
gymnastics is a lot about like your own like
Mm,
mental and physical strength, and like you're really up against like yourself, like you're just trying to beat
mm,
your own scores.
right, right,
And
right, right.
I think like, yeah, the fact that like if you fall, that's on you. It's not like your teammate like
Mm,
missing the touchdown, you know, it's like it's all on you, and like your success is your
mm,
own work ethic, your own discipline, you know, and how far like you can allow your mental state to go. Because some of the skills, like when you get up to a high level of gymnastics, like girls just quit because like the fear builds up. So I think
wow.
being fearless is a huge aspect that I think like definitely like ties over with this industry, because you really kind of have to be cutthroat to like make it. You're always going to be working with different teams from all over, and I always try to remind myself most of these people are just as exhausted or more exhausted than I am. And if
For
they're
sure.
being like short and rude and like,
Yeah,
I normally am like, this isn't me. Like, that's like just like their own energy. I'm just here to do my job. I'm not here to like cause problems or get emotional
right,
about things. I used
right.
to a lot, but now I definitely am able to separate myself. And it really is like dialing in and saying like, yeah, it's game time. Like, these are like my teammates, but they're also my opponents. Like, we're
Right.
all working together, but we're all focusing on our job. Like, I'm not gonna like, if something's going on with the lasers, I know, I'm sure other VJs know how to help, but like I can't, you know, like everyone's responsible but working together. And I think that is where it's definitely been a big like consistency from like my childhood.
Mm,
I love being under pressure. I definitely can crumble under pressure, but yeah, definitely have learned a lot of coping techniques over the years through that. So
nice.
yeah, a lot tied over nicely, I would say. It's just a it's how much pressure you want to put on yourself is like gymnastics and like being an artist. And I think I am really good at putting a lot of pressure on myself and like keeping myself hungry to like keep reaching goals. I think
Nice.
that's a hard thing that I've noticed other people struggle with. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, they had this goal to VJ at this event or work with this person, and they did that, and then they
And then it,
get to that point and they're like, oh shit, like what is next? Like
what's now?
that
Yeah.
happened. Yeah. So it is
Yeah.
really like consistently building goals. Like, what's that next skill? How am I going to get to that next level? just like
Totally.
gymnastics. Yeah.
That's such a great perspective on, like, on the pressure, on the build up, on like having to create those goals for yourself. It's so true. And yeah, it does seem like your background of this gymnastics, this high pressure kind of thing, really shaped you to, grab the bull by the horns, as it were, and be able to like have this massive success in your career. So that's awesome. Okay, so let's get back to how we get to this career. So you got your iPhone. You're kind of like getting really interested in photography. What was kind of the catalyst that pushed you into wanting to go to art school? And was that like a very, I mean, you're kind of like this very, high level sport, active kind of person. All of a sudden you're shifting to like a totally different thing. What was that like? Did you get any pushback? Was there people that were excited for you? Did you have any like mentors or people that were inspiring you to go to art school? Like, tell us a little bit about your entry into art school and kind of how that shaped who you are today as well.
Yeah, I think definitely in high school I gravitated towards like my art teacher and my art classes just because it was like this safe haven outside of like the whole school, I felt. I think growing up like dyslexic, and I had a lot of other learning disabilities like visual processing and auditory processing. So I actually like visually, when I look at something like reading a text, I might be like a sentence ahead and my brain is only processing like 2 sentences previous. So I was reading at a way slower pace. And I was also ambidextrous and would take notes like left-handed, right-handed, left-handed, right-handed. My teachers are like, what are you doing? Like that's a waste of time. Like pick a hand, like write the notes.
Oh my God.
So I knew I had all these like artistic abilities that like were just so, I would say, contradicting to myself. I call myself a very contradicting person because all throughout like when I was discovering myself, I feel like I was always being told to like go the other direction. So in my brain, I sometimes think like completely opposite, and it is like sometimes confusing for people. And I think just all the learning disabilities and the way my thinking pattern was growing up just slowly pushed me to like not like speaking as much, not being very verbal, and just like expressing myself through like emotion more, and like just being more standoffish and being like more body language type of person. And yeah, I think just being able to gravitate. I had my professor, Miss Kelly Long. I love her to death to the day I die and beyond. She like shaped me as a high schooler. She really gave me like that place. Like you come to the art room and like none of that matters. Like dyslexia doesn't matter. Like grades, like GPA doesn't matter. Like just your like human like presence matters. Like that's all it is like creating something to make you feel good, and it doesn't really have to be anything, I remember like kids in my high school art class like made like in our pottery classes like trying to make bongs and stuff, and of course like we were in a Catholic school. My teacher, she'd just like fill the holes up, she'd still let us like have the pieces, awesome. But she's like, you guys really push me, like I don't want to do this but I have to, like just stop. She was cool. That's and awesome. She really like, yeah, I think she was definitely one of the first people that like showed me like you can be a successful artist. She actually like moved on to, she was just my high school art teacher, and she moved on to be a showcasing artist at the Chicago Art Institute, and like teaches and works at art galleries awesome. Out there now. So it was definitely inspiring. She left my senior year, and we ended up with another art teacher who I didn't really like. So I was like, oh, like I could be this. Like I could. So I kind of like thought like maybe I could be like a teacher, an art teacher. My mom was very artistic, and so was my grandma. My grandma was like this super talented florist and would like hand decorate like all these like flower arrangements for her church, and just like I just remember Christmas being like her house being decorated looked like the White House, like professional decorating. So I think it was like very crafty trades from like my mom, my grandma, my sister, my older sister, was definitely a big influence. She lives in Chicago as well, and she is an architect. And so I definitely like saw her go through like architecture school, and definitely is more on like the math side of art, but is obviously still in very artistic
Totally.
career path. So
Totally.
I think I definitely saw like the doors opening, being like art is like, there are professions, especially with like me growing up in the beginning of like the rise of the tech, like the digital age, I would say. Like I think like my friends were getting iPhones like just right around like high school. I think I got my first iPhone like junior or senior year of high school. So definitely was like, grew up in middle school without like a lot of tech, but it like was full force when I was like in high school and college. Like we had iPads. I was the first high school class to have iPads like all 4 years, so that was like definitely like, a different way of learning. And like that freshman year was crazy because they had nothing blocked on the iPad, so it was like a free pass year.
Wow.
I just like kind of spent my time like on Pinterest and looking at like art, and I was just not paying attention in any of my classes because I just didn't. It just wasn't for me. My brain didn't understand math. Like I tried and I cried, and I would definitely would say I was like one of the smarter, like like higher average than like someone who had so many learning disabilities. But I was just like pretty resistant to wanting to like learn about like the things that my brain wouldn't comprehend. So I think I just like kind of like stuck around to the art room in high school, and that's kind of like what led me to pursue the major in art in college. My parents were definitely not super stoked, I would say, about me studying just fine art. Yeah, but then when I kind of had the direction of like, oh, I want to be a graphic designer, that's what I told my parents. And there's this whole new like digital like artistic like career paths opening up that weren't really there before. And I told my parents, I'm like, just look, everyone's gonna need graphic designers in a few years. That was back in like 2016, so
Right.
I think they were a little like hesitant, but I was very determined, and they put a lot of like pressure on me to succeed. So I think they always kind of like believed I would figure it out. But yeah, definitely my mom, my grandma, my sister, I think they definitely paved a path for me to feel like I could pursue this. And I think I just took it a lot further than my parents thought I would, which is great. I'm sure they're very happy. My mom and my dad do say, they're like, we had no idea what the fuck you were doing, but we're super proud and see it now. Like we were worried.
That's awesome. I mean, that's like a really nice thing to hear, that like they can acknowledge that now, that you're being successful and following your dreams and all that stuff. Because it's like, as a parent myself, I mean, my kid's very young, but like there's always this kind of thing in your mind of like, well, you want them to succeed, right? Like that's like a normal thing that you want your kids to succeed. And it's like, well, being an artist is a very hard thing to succeed in. So it's like, where does the follow your dreams / succeed kind of like interconnect and like, come to fruition? I still believe that like if you follow your passion, no matter what that passion is, if you're passionate about something and you go with it, you're going to succeed. It might not be a financial succession, but you're going to succeed happily. You're going to be really good at what you do. And that's like way more important than money anyways.
Yeah, I always say my favorite rapper, he goes by NF. One of his like lines that he like repeats in like a lot of different songs, or like in different ways, or in different albums over time, is that his definition of success is just being able to create something that no one else can.
Wow.
And that's what's always stuck
Powerful.
with me, is like success from my family. Like my dad was first generation American, and like my grandparents like escaped from the war, and they lived in Germany and Hungary. And I can only imagine like the life that he had, like being the oldest of 5 siblings, basically like having that parental role. and, you know, having no money, paying himself like through school, through college, and then
Wow.
creating business from the start into a multi-million-dollar company. I think
Amazing.
that's like what I saw too, like his like drive for work, um, and success in like that sense of like sustaining a family. um in a way it was like super inspiring, but it also showed me like he didn't spend any time with us. Like he was working
Oh wow.
24/7 and created this life for us, but like we became so distant as a family
Yeah.
through that process that I
Wow.
think it definitely shaped me to know that you have to support yourself and you have to have stability, but like you can't define success by like what's in your wallet or like what
Totally.
your possessions are at all.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Sorry. So your family escaped Germany during the war. Are you Jewish, or was it like the other side of escaping the war?
I'm very German
Oh.
actually, but yeah, so I'm pretty sure yeah, I come from a very, you know, negative family line, but yeah, my grandma tells me stories how she lived in Austria-Hungary, basically just grew up in a bunker. So
Wow.
like her stories of like her childhood, like we'll be eating dinner and she'll like yell at me and my brother for like not finishing our plate, and she's just like, you guys have no idea what it was like if we had one piece of bread, like we were like saving that for a week. Like
Wow.
this is such a
So
blessing. Like everyone needs to like stop and just like look at their food and like think about that for a second. And we're
yeah.
all just
Wow.
like, oh my God, like
Oh,
of
grandma, shut
course
the
now
fuck
we all
up.
feel like shit.
Yeah. Totally. That's so funny. Like, that's such like a classic, like, you know, Holocaust Jewish grandma survivor thing. But it's also like
Mhm.
anybody that went through that period has that experience of like,
Yeah,
not having
exactly.
food, being appreciative. It's like so crazy how that's such a global, like, wars affect everybody, not just the people that it's affecting directly. So it's very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so I love your introduction into art school and kind of like your your inspiration from your teacher. That's really beautiful. Um, when did like VJing and kind of this idea of digital visual arts kind of get infused in you? I know that you learned, or at least you were mentored by VJ Cobra. Shout out VJ Cobra, big friend of the podcast. Shelby, the Queen, and Utah Visuals,
Yes.
who I don't know personally, but
No one
Shelby talked
does.
about him a
Not
lot.
a human.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did you find Shelby? How did you kind of get into this whole VJ world, and what was the progression from school into this kind of like getting into this field?
Yeah, so that's actually like I like remember this so clearly. I was it was 2019, and you know, I just started really going to those bigger production festivals.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18 turning 19, so I was like able to go to, you know, EDC Orlando, all these
Right.
like high end like huge LED screens, and I think that's when I realized I was at EDC with like some of my college friends, and we walk up to Troy Boy's set and there's just like, you know, these huge LED walls on the main stage. And I was just talking to some random guy that was like in our college friend of a friend group, and I was like, this is so cool, like I can do this, I want to do this, like I could do this
Nice.
better. And he's like,
Hell
you
yeah.
know, on whatever, doing whatever, being like, no one's doing that, they're just playing it. And I'm like, no, someone's definitely doing that. So I remember kind of like we were near front of house, and I had no idea what front of house was, didn't even know they called it front of house at the time, but was like, you know, kind of like seeing what was going on under the tent and was very like drawn to it. So I remember like leaving my group and going to investigate and just sitting there like watching all of these like artists like do their thing, and I had no idea what was going on, didn't recognize any of the equipment besides, you know, their laptops and MIDI controllers, but was just like so fascinated and wanted to learn. And I kind of like tried to like, you know, say hi to someone in the booth, and like, you know, I that's kind of what where I started at, was like hanging out by that front of house at all the festivals I went to from that moment on. and kind of just been like, this is so cool, I want to learn this, like y'all are sick. And I remember going to a festival in Georgia, Shaky Beats, and for Boogie T set, Kuz was like one of my favorite VJs at the time. Like I thought it was so awesome how he like hand drew all of the animations and then made them come to life. So I remember like seeing him at a bunch of shows at my college and always going up to him being like, this is so sick, you know, like I love this. And I think like at the time he probably just thought I was like some random girl in the crowd, but I kind of started to realize like every show that I went to, no one was ever going up to him. Like, you know, everyone's always crowding around the artist at the end of the set. So it was pretty easy to, you know, after like it was a daytime set too at this festival. So I think it was like really easy to just walk up to him and start asking questions. And he followed me back on Instagram, and, you know, he was on tour and he's like, you know, good luck. Like it's going to be kind of hard to find someone to teach you if you're interested in learning this. But he told me to get my notes out and wrote down like the MIDI controller he was using and like the like kind of horsepower that the laptop like was using and just like the basic things. And he was like, you know, reach out to me and good luck. Like, I hope you like do pursue this. There's not many females in here, and that's pretty badass that you're interested. And he's like, don't get discouraged if like people don't take you seriously. Like if you like want to do this, do it. And I wish I like could be more help. And, you know, he still like likes my Instagram stories and like follows my page like to this day. So I always think like he was the first person that like wanted to help, but like didn't have like the time and energy. And I started realizing that was more the vibe than people being like, oh, this fucking girl. You know, it was more like they're tired and exhausted and have zero time to mentor somebody. So I think I kind of just like went online from there and tried to like figure out what I could. And I just started like plugging my computer like into an HDMI and putting up like videos that I had taken and kind of like putting them together in Premiere to create like a set that I could play at like a party for my friends. And I remember on my 20th birthday, it was 2020, and I had sprained my ankle or something. I was in a boot, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my birthday. And one of my best friends, Miguel, he goes by WS. He does a lot of like talent coordinating and like really cool stuff out here in Denver, but definitely is still like one of my favorite DJs to this day. He was very involved in like the local scene at my college. Like he was DJing a lot of like frat parties and cool clubs like around campus. And he was like, yeah, we should throw a party like at your house, and like you could just put on visuals and all DJ for as long as you want.
That's awesome.
We ended up making a bunch of like weed, like we made like weed dipping sauce for pizza and like just like this whole edible meal, and made it like a 420 birthday theme. And then my friends, we all just like were sitting at this house for like 10 hours, and my friend never stopped like mixing music. And I finally figured out like how to use like certain like, you know, there's like little fun meditation game apps. Like I would just like project those up and like freeze my iPad and then switch to another app where I could like show a video, freeze it. And like I was not even like VJing remotely how someone professionally would, but I was figuring out how to show cool art on the TV for my friends. And I think that's I started realizing, I was like, maybe, you know, they just do this, you know, like maybe I really can find like my way around like, you know, not doing it professionally. And I was kind of having fun with it, and I was challenging myself to see like what can I do to like make this look cool that like is outside of like the programs. But then I think when COVID hit, that is when, this is such a long story, I'm sorry.
No, this is amazing. It's awesome.
Great. So when COVID hit, it was my junior year of college. It was like summertime, you know, we're going into my senior year, and I was picking out all my classes, you know, and I was pretty heavily into my graphic design photography journey. I was super stoked to take blackroom photography to like learn film development that semester. And was all my classes were already signed up for, ready to go. And then we get this like notice about like COVID, and I also was supposed to study abroad one of the semesters. So my whole last few semesters were just like, I need to completely either take a year off or I need to completely switch my classes, because classes like the darkroom photography got canceled because everything in person was just done. So that class completely disappeared, and I decided that I did not want to be stuck at Florida State for another year, and that I should just spend. So I signed up for a random video art class that I was like, oh, this was cool. You know, I'm kind of pursuing this like fun little VJ like hobby, if I would say at the time that's what it was. I'm like, maybe I could learn some cool like video editing skills that could like help my graphic design career as well. And I honestly was always interested in film and movies. So I was like, this is a really good trade-off class, that it was online and I would still like graduate the next, you know, term. And so we get into the class and it's on Zoom the first day. And my teacher's like going around saying like, all right, introduce yourself, your grade, your whatever, like why you want to take this class. And so everyone's going around introducing themselves, explaining like, oh yeah, like I want to get into film school. I'm taking video art because I'm like really fascinated by, you know, like whatever, you know, like really great answers, like really passionate. Like at like this point in art school, you're surrounded with really creative people that know themselves. And I think at this time, I definitely knew where I knew myself as an artist more, but I still didn't know myself like these other kids that like grew up knowing themselves, like being in a conservative household, wearing a uniform. Like I didn't really know who I was until like end of college, like just starting to. So I think like being in this class and hearing all these other kids, I was just like in a bad mood, like didn't know what to say. So when he finally got to me, I was like, hi, my name's Stef. To be honest, I had no interest in taking this class. I was supposed to be in the class and it got canceled. But this was like the next best option for me, because I do think it would be cool to like learn how to VJ as a hobby. And I know that's like not a normal thing, but yeah, I'm interested to see like what this class has to offer. And the teacher was like, what the fuck did you just say? And I was like, oh, he has no idea what I'm talking about. So I'm like, oh, you know, like DJing, like it's like video jockey, disc jockey, like it's mixing video. And he's, oh, shut up, I know what it is. Like I've been doing it since before you're alive. And I was like, whoa, like what the fuck, like this is crazy.
Damn.
And he actually, yeah, he had worked on like a bunch of projection mapping so cool. projects. And yeah, his name is Buskarin. Okay. We would call him Professor Tra, TRA. And he now works like, I've kind of like kept up with his professional career, and he does like projection mapping for like museum gallery installations all over the nation. So it was like a crazy like starseed, like I don't know how that happened, but he was like, yeah, I could like kind of teach you like those skills. And so I was here like in college, like learning from someone who, you know, like I'm in their class. So he really took me under his wing. And like we did like separate like sessions where he would kind of teach me the like aspects of projection mapping, where like the rest of the class wasn't like on the syllabus, but like he really took things further to allow me to learn more aspects that would be helpful for VJing. And he actually helped me like buy my first green screen and was showing me all these awesome, cool like video techniques for film that I could incorporate. And he's like, no one's going to be using this type of like like effect techniques. And he also taught me like one of the biggest lessons I've learned as a visual artist that has, I think, made me stand out compared to other VJs is that it is a very like effect based art. Like, you know, you can map your MIDI board to have whatever effects you want. And it's really just like, you know, you can pull content from wherever. So there's really like two types of VJing. The people that are like the best at mixing, like you're top DJs right now that are selling out, you know, shows. And then there's the people that are creating 100% original content, or, you know, taking content that they're creating with their friends and collaborative, and then just kind of putting that up as is. My teacher taught me that effects are kind of compensation. If your content is high quality, you shouldn't have to use like any effects. So I use very little effects in my performances because I'm not practicing mixing like most of these people. Like when I'm building a set, like the content and the story is what I'm spending 150% of the time. I'm mapping my MIDI board 10 minutes before my set, and like,
Wow.
you know, it's like it's never, and I really want to learn to, you know, practice more mixing skills. But I think for me, it's always stood out that, like, you know, if my content is original and quality, and if I'm organizing it in a way, even if I'm like using some of my friends' art too, if it's not 100% original, it's
Right.
creating a story. It's not just putting the art up there as a piece. You know, it's not just like putting up a loop, and like it's this grand masterpiece of its own. It's like, might just be a video of someone like drawing something on a window, such a simple thing that someone might not think of as like visionary art, but it's the story that it builds and tells, like from start to finish. And I think that's like what is kind of making my career like happen so quickly, because it's like just a different way of looking at the way, you know, looking at VJing. It's like I don't see a lot of other people performing in that aspect. So it's definitely, it's a risk, and it was a huge risk for me going in, and it gave me a lot of imposter syndrome because I felt like I wasn't showcasing what I should be showcasing or what people liked. But realistically, like in the end, it turned out to be like the complete opposite. People are like, this is so cool, I've never seen someone like do this, and it's inspiring other people to kind of like showcase like realistic art like that too. So I think it's kind of, yeah, it's been a really cool journey. I think he taught me so much. And after graduating, that's when, you know, I moved back home and decided I'm just going to get a corporate graphic design job in Jacksonville where my parents live, save up. And I just started kind of like the VJ journey as a fun little side thing. And then Cobra randomly found me on Instagram and reached out to me. Like I had been reaching out trying to find someone and had completely given up on finding a mentor.
Wow.
And then as soon as I gave up, she was like, yo, you live in Jackson, you have aspiring VJ in your bio. Why the fuck are we not friends? Like, come over.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so she taught me as much as she could, like while I was living back in Jacksonville. And she ended up introducing me to Utah when she went on tour with Schlump. So she didn't either just like leave me high and dry. Like she taught me as much as she could. And then in Utah is like, you cannot get a hold of this man. He's like kind of a ghost on social media. He's there, but not there. I have to, you know, text him multiple times a month just to make sure he's alive, but I always know he is, but he's just not attached to his phone. Like he'll be on his PC computers and like, he's in his own little world, and he's like bending, he's doing like audio visual sets. Like he's producing music like completely from scratch, you know, visuals completely from scratch. He's doing like it all. He knows how to, he's an LED tech. I always bring my like VJ laptop over to his apartment so he can like open it up and clean it all for me. Yeah, he's great. So it was really, and they were both in my hometown. So I honestly felt it was like I needed to get through school. I didn't want to drop out and just be, you know, I'm going to make this career happen. I wanted like to make something, like to prove to my parents that I could like commit to like getting a degree. And if I could do that, then why couldn't I like pursue whatever I wanted to after? And then it was really great. You know, I had like the design job as like a stability, like income. And then Utah was taking me to his shows. Cobra was guest listing me to Schlump shows. She introduced me to LS Dream and his team. And suddenly all of these people wanted to help. It was like the gatekeeping and the people that were too busy. It was
Went
like
away.
water started and like my path was right there, and all I had to
Amazing.
do was like be grateful and walk down it.
Amazing.
And I definitely had to like get through some, you know, of the let go of the partying, let go of like everyone
Right.
going there as an escape. Like, this is your home now. This isn't where you
Yeah.
go to escape, like where you go home. This is like our front of home, and like we have to like treat it as that, you know.
That's awesome. Super cool. And it's lovely to hear like that, the gatekeeping, because I think that is a big thing for a lot of people. I'm sure, you know, as a woman, probably even more, and we'll definitely talk about that soon. But, you know, it's awesome that it kind of parted, like you said, and that you got to be able to kind of almost have like a very easy ride into this kind of like career path. Easy maybe is not the right word, but like a smooth ride into this career path.
It definitely was more like, yeah, if I didn't stop, it was paved for me, but it
Right,
definitely was like,
right.
gotta like knock trees down in the way.
For sure. It's always like that, you know. It's like, yeah, the road, like you look at it, it's like you see all the way down the road, it's super clear, and then you start getting closer and there's like all these things in the middle of the road, and you're like, wait a second, I thought this road was
Exactly.
clear, like what's going on here?
You're like, whoa.
But once you get the momentum, then it's like whatever's in the way, you just swerve around it or push it aside, you know. It's hard to get the momentum, I think, is what the problem is. So really cool, and I loved hearing about all of that. I would love to, before we get into our set, we're getting close. There's two topics I want to talk to you about. One I think is dear to your heart, and well, I guess they're both dear to your heart. But first, we'll start off with the clothing and merch. You're very active in you know, the clothing and merch. You also, I know you work for a company called Mind Warp Merch. I think it's local in Denver. Is that right? Probably.
Yes.
So yeah, just tell me a little bit about like how you got into that. You know, the dichotomy of visuals and merch is very close together, especially when it comes to like brand development, especially when it comes to like design elements. But yeah, you know, you make really cool stuff. We can even maybe show a little bit of the stuff that you have on your website, on your brand, because it's really, really nice stuff, and there's like a nice message to it as well, which is cool. But yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've always been super interested in like the fashion world. I think like being in high school, having like a uniform, and then transforming, going into college and being able to like express myself through clothing was like such a amazing like feeling of freedom, I would say.
Nice.
And I found it like super fun to like kind of like take old things and turn them into new things, because the one thing I absolutely hated
I love this
after coming out of high school being in a uniform was I just could not stand if I'd go to a festival and be wearing the same thing as someone else.
Same.
Like, already done that.
Oh
Been there.
no.
I need people.
So
to,
no Thryda
you know,
for you?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And I'm
I
joking,
love
I'm joking.
them, but you know,
I'm joking.
you can incorporate that with something,
Totally,
you know, to
with
make
something
it original.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm always here to support the other artists in the community, but I'm like, okay, this has got to go with like the accessories and everything. And especially like kind of as a photographer doing a lot of on-stage photography in the beginning of my career, it's like, you know, it's respectful to wear dark colors, but like obviously I'm a butterfly trying to express myself. So I think I started dyeing my hair a bunch of colors to kind of like, you know, I'd wear the black for, you know, when I'm on stage, but that would be like the one thing I would have. So yeah, I think I was always, and I think having the same name as Lady Gaga, like she also has Stefani spelled the way I do, she was always an idol to me, and like her like just over exaggerated way of like dressing and her presence, I'm like, that's so sick. Like she is a walking sculpture, you know. And that's what clothing can do. Clothing can like super transform us into like whatever character we want to be. And I think I like relate a lot to like the symbolism I use in my projects with like nature, and kind of always going with like a nature aesthetic. Like I have like a whole arm tattoo of all my, you know, my animals and my animal kingdom, I say. So I definitely like to like carry that over into like my style. But I really got into merch. I didn't really start that journey, even though it seemed like it makes perfect sense, you know, the graphic design and everything, until, you know, I was on my corporate like kick with design, and I was, I was always fascinated by Colorado, wanted to like look into moving to Denver. My cousins lived in Denver when I was younger, so I'd visit a lot, and I love the way people dressed over here, a lot more like casual, comfortable, um, and but still like super like artistic and colorful. And I actually was applying to my next corporate design job. There was a junior design position opening with North Face. So that was like my first like, oh, I kind of want to get into like, design like wearable items, like stuff that I could actually have on my
Show
body to
like
show
a
as my
physical
art.
thing. Yeah, like
Yeah,
proper. Yeah.
exactly. I felt like my art was always, on my camera, on my phone,
Digital,
online.
yeah.
So like how do we bring back this like tangible like art form? Like what I used to be able to show for like my paintings and stuff. Like I thought that was so cool. But it ended up, COVID changed a lot of things. That job ended up disappearing. So it was a big reason why I ended up staying in Florida. And I started interning with one of my other like lifelong mentors, and he's like an older brother to me, I would say. Also because we look like siblings and are very German. But his name is Franz. He's like the PR king of the scene. Like he does PR for Shaq, That's Dead.
Wow.
So he worked on Mercif's team doing their PR. He moved from Florida. He was 4 years older than me, so I met him when I was a freshman at Florida State. He was a senior. He put up flyers on campus in the art building saying like calling all like students that are interested in working in, the music industry, like if you have talents in photography, graphic design, like PR, interviewing, writing,
Nice.
like all these other facets. I'm like, oh, I checked like 5 of those boxes. Like that's really cool. So I just showed up to like the campus like little group meeting, and he was just starting this online platform, and he had already like kind of worked on management teams and stuff. So he had his foot in the door in the industry, and had a lot of connections. So he was able to, start this MP3 company at like our college, and was able to get a lot of, this kind of created my friend group in college. Like we were able to go to all these festivals under Franz's PR company.
Nice.
And I was taking photos. Yeah, my friends were doing interviews, and this was like,
That's so cool.
I didn't care if I was getting paid at this time. I was 17.
Right,
I
you
was
were just
18
having a
going to
ball.
every festival I wanted to go to.
Totally.
He got my first ever photography like set at a festival. I photographed for Charles the First at Hula.
Wow. That's awesome.
On the amp stage. And I think like that was like my first being like, yeah, like, this is where I should be. Like, this is cool, whether it is going to be photography or not. Like, I'm going to stick with Franz. He's able to get me like these really cool opportunities.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
just going to like do whatever I can to like, be on his good side and like continue this relationship. So yeah, he helped me with the photography stuff a lot. And I was shooting for his magazine. And when he left college and ended up moving to Denver, started working for Mercif's team, that's when I first started getting in touch with Mercif's team. And I got to do a lot of photography stuff for his like Florida tour. I mentioned earlier, I was a huge fan of Boogie T and his VJ Coos. Mercif at his first like big tour was opening up for Boogie T. So I was cool. Kind of following that tour around a little bit, got cool photography gigs. And, Mercif's team was just like, I saw how like they were like, they had their eye on the prize. They were a little cutthroat and like, but just so nice too. But it was like the perfect mix of like hardcore, like cutthroat professionalism, but also like love and abundance, and like they're in it for the right reasons. And it was cool when I finally decided to make the jump from Florida to Colorado. It was like 2 years later. I had, stayed at my parents' for 2 years, wasn't paying rent, was just saving all the corporate design money, and like VJing and photography was simply a hobby. Like I already had my, work from design, like I was able to save up. So I really was like, what is stopping me moving and like trying to pursue another career out there. I could find a design job out there. Like, my parents were like, you can't move until you have a job. Like, that's insane. You're not moving across the country. And I was like, I've saved up like thousands of dollars. Like, I think I would be okay. I looked at, like, did the numbers. I'm like, I could live there without having a job for 5 months. If I move there and can't get a job in 5 months, then I'm not supposed to be there. And I think my parents were just so resistant to me moving across the country without a definite plan that it caused a lot of issues. And I knew that it was the right path for me, but it wasn't until my brother was studying abroad in Australia and I decided to go and visit him, because why the hell not? The free place to stay in Australia. So we were traveling around, and my parents came and met us, and I just like knew I couldn't go back to Florida. Like, traveling, seeing all these, a new country that a new continent I've never seen before, like meeting people with like completely different like life stories and perspectives. I was like, there's no way I'm going back to Florida. Like, I just knew it so deeply, and I kind of got in like I feel bad. I kind of ruined like the trip for my brother probably a little bit, but I just got in these awful fights with my parents about how I'm I'm not going back, and like, whatever you say, it's not going to stop me. And then they kind of had to get on board, I think. So when I got back to Florida, I literally just started packing my room and was like, I'm going, like, finding an apartment. I'm going to make this happen. And they just like supported me and were like, okay, this is going to happen. And then I made the move. I started, I started like kind of just putting feelers out for design jobs. And I just realized I kind of skipped a major part. In college, I actually did learn screen printing as well. It was just like,
so you had that
one of those
background.
It was one of those classes that I took for fun and didn't really think anything of though at the time. That's probably why I didn't think to bring it up. But so I did have that like a year of experience with that, but it wasn't like my main like, oh, I'm a screen printer, that's what I do. But so I think I just kind of, when I was out here, I was like, like, I think my first gig out here was the summer I moved. It was the last Sonic Bloom. So I did like VJing for that event. And then I kind of got my name out, and I feel like it was a good way to like start my career out here. And I think I just kind of wanted, like, had the idea to make some shirts, like, just for like my friends, like Franz and WS and my other client I work with, Medusa. I'm like, it would be cool to like make them a gift, not necessarily like make merch to sell. So all I did was post an Instagram story saying, hey, does anyone have like a company that they like know that I could like go and like screen print it myself? Like, I do have the experience. And then next thing I knew, apparently, I guess the power of the internet, really, that Instagram story got sent to someone else who worked at the Mind Warp office. And they were asking Franz, they're like, oh, this is your girl, right? She works with you. Like, because I had done a few, like, I call it ghost graph design for like Morflow. When Franz would be like, hey, the team is kind of looking for stuff. Do you want to like show them some ideas? So I think they kind of knew the name, they knew who I was, and they knew that I was moving here. And it just so happened that their merch girl, she was looking for another person to help out. She was doing all of the artist merch on that like artist label by hand herself. So I went into thinking that I was just gonna like create some shirts and owe them money, and next thing I knew, I was offered a job.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it really
Super
just
cool.
like, it was crazy. I go home, I call my parents, I'm like, I got offered a job. I didn't even like have to look for it, And then I started working part-time with them, and it was like enough stability for me to do VJing, do that. And then within a few months, the girl who hired me, she moved on to like, her path. She has another great job now. And they just offered me her position. So I got a full-time salary position, like almost out of nowhere.
That's awesome.
And I was bringing a new like talent to the table. I wasn't just like creating the merch, had my own, like had more clients, and I also was a designer. Like the girl who was making the merch before wasn't a designer. They always needed
you also had like the eye and
yeah, so it really was just like, it worked out, and it was such a great environment for me when I first moved here. like only being here for 2 months, I was now in the Mind Warp office, like around Mersive and Smokeland, Enzo, all these artists coming in to make music upstairs, and then we make the merch downstairs. You know, I was
Cool.
working with Hank and Tynan, which are just they're incredible agents and managers, and was learning so much. And my boss Will, was the owner of like the merch branch of Mind Warp, and he just completely like gave me the world. Like this job he allowed the flexibility for me to leave on weekends if I wanted to VJ, you
Wow.
know, really pursue like making my own merch on the side. Yeah, I really like he gave me a home in Colorado. Like with that
That's
job,
awesome.
like it gave me, you know, the opportunity to kind of figure everything out. And I just can't, like, I cannot explain how like incredibly blessed I am to, I don't work for them full time anymore, but for that year, having a full time salary job in the industry is like, you really
Makes such
sit
a big
back and you're like,
difference. Yeah.
wow, this is fucking rare.
Yeah,
Like
for
I'm getting
sure.
taxes taken out, I'm getting like taken care. I'm like, this is crazy. And I think I wanted to commit to that for a full year. It still was like a 9 to 5. It was like a lot, you know,
But you
wanting,
had the
I was,
flexibility and they had the
it
respect for
worked
you
out.
as an
Yeah.
artist. Yeah. Yeah.
But at this point
Super
in time,
interesting.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Continue.
Yeah. So
At this
I
point in
guess like
time.
this point, yeah, at this point in time, like I realized that I was a little in over my head with my time,
Mm.
because all the bookings have picked up a lot, and I felt like I was being a little bit taking advantage of their kindness of me allowing to pursue my own art. And I kind of had to be upfront and be like, I don't think I can do this full position. I'm
Mm-hmm.
running myself dry, and like you guys deserve someone that can be 100%
Right.
like fully
Wow.
committed to this. And I just decided to step aside because you know, it was fucking awesome. I was starting to make it like kind of the same amount of my salary as I was with my own art. So now I still work as like a designer. I'm just more as like an independent contractor.
Gotcha. When
Um,
they need.
but I still visit like the office, and you know they're all doing their own thing and kind of going their own ways as well. But they
Nice.
were like that's my fam. Like Mercer's team, I really owe a lot of gratitude to, because I don't think I could have sustained living in Denver, especially in the apartment that I chose. I picked a nice downtown place by myself. Now I'm in like a less expensive situation. It's a little less pressure. So it's also like a little bit ease with not having the full-time job. But yeah, that was my whole first year in Denver. So I really like, I appreciate their team so much. Like Will, I just don't know where I would be if like that team didn't give me that like
So
opportunity.
it's so important to have that when you move to a new place, and
Mm-hmm.
it's also like interesting how you were able to utilize all the kind of like multidisciplinary kind of like artistic expressions that you have into this kind of landing pad path. So it's really awesome. So before we get into your set, I just want to also talk about another topic that I think is very important to you. That's harm reduction. You talk a lot about it on your Instagram, and you're very vocal about it on your stories. So, yeah, I mean, let's try and focus it a little bit on like what is the importance of harm reduction conversation and harm reduction education from your perspective.
Yeah, I honestly think it is crazy to see like how much we have like gone since like I've entered the scene. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many more like organizations and people just like openly talking about harm reduction. And you know, I
Mm-hmm.
think that is just like it's really special to me because overdose is just such a personal topic of discussion for me. I've lost a lot of close people in my life to overdose, and you know, I've struggled with
Mm-hmm.
addiction as well. When I was a gymnast and had those two, I tore my Achilles completely. That was the worst injury I could have ever imagined. And you know, I went through surgery and they put me on opiates, you know, as a 16-year-old, and didn't really tell me much about these pills. And after like being on them for so long and going into another surgery, and being on them again, I faced like opiate addiction like right off the bat and had no idea what I
Wow.
was going for. Like I
So
had
sorry.
no idea. No one like these doctors, like, you know, they tell you, okay, take one at this time, whatever, but like they don't say like this is a highly addictive substance, like you can die if you take, like, none of that. That is like how I should have been talked to, you know? And I think that is like my struggle with that, and having to like face rehab and face like the challenges of addiction before I was even an adult is really like what made my brain like struggle in this scene. I think when you know, when your brain is developing, you shouldn't be indulging in like a lot of substances to begin with. And such a like heavy opiate like was just like it threw me, like I was not like a completely different person at 16 and was an absolute mess. And it wasn't until like I told someone like, hey, I'm like, I don't think this is good, like this, like something's wrong. And at first like I was shamed like by my parents and was very much like pretty much thrown out of the house, like very like that's not acceptable. And I don't blame them, like that shit's scary, like I wouldn't know how to act if like that was my kid. And at the time it was like I resisted everything, was just angry because it wasn't my fault in my opinion. So it was just like, I think being in that position very early and not having help, not knowing what the dangers were, that was like my biggest like eye-opening, you know, experience that has like carried over in the scene, is like a lot of these people that are like out partying, they don't know like this stuff is like that bad, or hey, you shouldn't combine these things, that's a deadly combination. Like I
Yeah.
feel like the education is like, you know, you can go out and
It's
go to a
missing for
party, but
sure.
like it's just like a little stigmatized as to like we aren't talking about like the negativity. It's like, oh, take this much and you'll be fine, or test this, if it's clean you're fine. The conversation always seems to end there right now, and that's like my issue is
Right.
it's so incredible to see people starting the conversation, but
Mm-hmm.
what's the point of a conversation if, you know, text your friend, hey, like, are you okay, how are you, and they're like, no, I'm not really doing good, and you just
Mm-hmm.
ghost them, like that's worse than even
Yeah,
checking in on them, in
for
my
sure.
opinion. So I think the conversation stood like it shouldn't end at, oh, this is how you like use Narcan. This is like, you can't, you know, fentanyl, these doses are lethal,
Right.
like whatever, these combinations. I just think there's so much more. Like for somebody who struggles with depression, like I'm
Mm-hmm.
on um, antidepressants. Like I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
many people know you cannot take psychedelics when you're on antidepressants. Like
Yeah,
the
'cause it can be very dangerous.
combination, yeah, it can very much cause like serotonin syndrome, which
Mm-hmm.
like can lead to immediate suicidal thoughts, even if you're not
Mm-hmm.
suicidal. And I think a lot of so I like took these classes and learned like these chemical, like what the interactions can affect, how they can affect the brain and psychology. And I took these classes because I struggled with it and was like,
Mm-hmm.
no one is fucking talking to me about it. If I talk about it on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, if I talk about it to my parents, they're just like, no, like fucking crazy, like addict,
Right.
get away.
Druggy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was like something I struggled with so much, was like I was always an open person, was always trying to talk to my mom, being like, why are you scared to talk to me about things? And I think it's like it was just like a stigma of like, I feel like older generations don't talk about like those situations unless it's like, you know, with a doctor or something. It's like just not a normal conversation. It's not a fun conversation. It's a really hard conversation. And I think now that so many people are struggling with like addiction and, you know, all of that, and it's like being in a way accepted by our community, like we're showing ways and giving people, you know, the tools to like consume consciously, but are we actually showing them like what the long-term effects are about even consuming consciously? Like, I'm
Right.
sorry, there's just certain drugs that like, what is the deal with nitrous? I'm sorry, like that is fucking scary. Like that shit can paralyze you. Like there's so many things. Like when I was in high school, I went to this ratchet ass like party, and I saw a girl die hitting a nitrous tank when I
Oh,
was
so
like
sorry.
17. So I feel like I was shown these things and like given these experiences to be able to have a voice. And I think I do struggle with, because like I'm an addict. Like I feel like I have struggled with being able to say like it's okay, and like being a little more soft with the subject. And I think I'm especially appreciated to take like this time to saying like, I'm not here to judge anyone in the community. I have been there. I've probably been darker than most people in the community. And I'm just like trying to share my experience about how much better it is on the other side and how real it is. Like, yeah, I'm going to tell people like, hey, by the way, like you could die from this. Like, yeah, and people might get upset by that, but like that's the hard truth. And sometimes like people just need to hear like what the reality is, instead of being like, yeah, just test it, you'll be fine. Like, make sure you carry Narcan, you're fine. Like, the overconsumption is like the topic that needs to be like more discussed. It's, yeah, conscious partying is a thing, but like, are you doing drugs just like on a daily basis, like at your home? Are you doing drugs alone? That's like my biggest thing. And after losing like someone that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with to opiate overdose, like if there's anything that I could do to like say like to help somebody, like I would do anything, to be able to get Austin back and have like that one last conversation being like, no, like if you're using, that's okay, like let me help you. I think so many people just struggle with like, it's such a shame, I need to hide it. Like it really isn't. Like I would say most people are, and it doesn't, maybe it's not drugs, but 9 out of 10 people are addicted to something. It's almost like a natural thing more than it is like an obscurity, and it shouldn't be shamed, in my opinion. And the more that
100%.
we like talk about it, the more people will be less afraid to reach out for help. Yeah, it just makes me a little sad going to events now, because I've been partying since I was young. I've seen it all, but just in the past few years, like I feel like the crowd's need to dissociate is overpowering the like point of the festival and the vibes of the festival and just like the sensations that you feel. It's like, I've been in front of houses VJing where I'm looking in crowds and I'm counting the amount of people I'm seeing passing out. Like it's such a heavy heart to have to sit in the like on a platform
Can't do
in the
anything about
crowd
it.
and
Yeah.
see it all. You see it all and you can't do it all. Can't do much, and it's just debilitating. And most of the
Totally.
time, like I'm like, can I like stop the visual and be like put big text being like saying like an alarming, like, because this is intense for me and I've had to walk away from sets to catch my breath and like cry and throw up because of the energy that I get from the crowd. And I almost am like, what was the point of that set? No one was there. No one was present. No one saw it. And I'm always wrong with that, because there is a ton of like, people that are always like going to festivals for the right reasons and are there to immerse themselves in art. And I get to have great conversations. But yeah, it's sad because I feel like more conversations now, I'm just seeing the rings around the nose, and it's a very like hard conversation to have. And I want to talk to people. Like I go to these events like not as often anymore. Like when I'm there, I'm trying to like meet new people and connect, and it just makes me, I'm such an empath that I feel when people are fucked up. And I just hope, I feel them so much that I'm like, oh, just be safe. Like I'm thinking about you even though you don't know who I am.
Well, I mean, that's your intention is there, and yeah, maybe nobody's there present, but imagine how many less people would be there if it wasn't for your art and your expression and your intention. So kind of always remember that you have an ability to create change and effect with your art while you're performing, especially. And I think, like what you're doing with your outreach and kind of like bringing a little bit more attention to it is definitely making an effect. I mean, I saw it, and yeah, I mean, it's really just about the conversation and the education, like the more you talk about it without making people feel othered, without making people feel judged, the more you educate people, like you said, then that creates change. And there's also like responsibility for, the people doing the parties. I mean, it's probably going to be harder to like talk to like, you know, the Daves of the world or whatever. I shouldn't name them, but like it's probably going to be harder to talk to like the people that are doing bigger parties, but you can talk to people that are doing smaller parties and be like, hey, maybe we should ban alcohol. Maybe we shouldn't, not ban it, but maybe we shouldn't sell alcohol at the event. Maybe we shouldn't sell, these type of things at the
Right.
event. Maybe we have like a mandatory, at the entrance, have a mandatory, like if you're doing drugs at the party, then make sure that you're doing it private, like some sort of focus on this. I know in Europe it's very big now to not have alcohol at the parties, and it makes a big difference because even though alcohol, I don't drink personally, but I don't judge anybody that drinks, but alcohol may not cause you to die, but it's gonna make you make bad decisions that it may
Absolutely.
cause you to be
The craziest drug I've ever done.
totally. I don't like alcohol so much.
I can't either anymore.
So yeah, I mean, it's like, there's ways to do it. Every festival in my scene of the psytrance scene in Europe, every festival has a harm reduction tent. They have like during the festival, they'll have like, don't buy this pill, stay away from this kind of thing. Come test your drugs. And that's like hugely important.
Right.
In America, it's so crazy that like people have to walk around with Narcan. That's like, it's such a fucked up kind of like thing that like, yeah, you need to have it so that you can solve the problem when people like are on a fentanyl thing. But at the same time, it's like, why is the solution to fentanyl having the thing that brings you back to life? Like,
right.
There needs to be like a big shift in that mentality,
I completely agree.
I don't know what it is. Okay, awesome. So we're going to jump into Stef.FX's Resolume here. I'm really excited to see what she's got ready for us. And take it away, Stef.
Yeah, so this is just one of my decks, the set that I put together for Mission Ballroom, the openers for Schwangel. Nice. So I've always noticed like looking at Resolooms is so funny because everyone has them like laid out a different way. Totally. And I think in the beginning of my career, my like Utah and Cobra kind of like show me how they operated it, and most people kind of like align like clips going like left to right, and that's how they'll shift. But I kind of like work my Resolume as like a snake. So I usually start like layer 1, column 1, and I work my way up and like I snake it around. So I'm always like layering up to like 8 different clips at a time and kind of like easing them into each other. It's never really like one clip playing into the next clip. I don't like being able to tell when a clip starts and stops, so I kind of try to like play it out. Like I feel like a lot of VJs play like it's like kind of one clip per song and they're adding effects per the song, and then it's transitioning into this new scene as like something else is happening, a new song is building. But I usually keep like the visuals up very short, and it's like I feel like if you look away, it's already gonna kind of be on to like the next thing. I kind of try to go as like not a clip per song, but a sequence and a column per song or per like moment, I would say, in the set. So yeah, this is always where I like start out, and I pick my very like the beginning and the end are always very like specific to me. What happens in the middle, I might like move around. I might do start to finish. I really like creating it as a storyboard start to finish. So I normally go like clip by clip in order, unless I'm like, ooh, this is like way too like dark to be on like a butterfly right now. Like I'll make adjustments as I like feel in the moment, but all sets are very like, I'll sit down and like look at my computer and be like, all right, what's the movie? Like I see it as a movie, like the beginning, the middle, and it's like telling us a story. And it really doesn't have like a lull. Like it's always gonna be like transforming. So this was my set for Dillard. I usually will storyboard. So I have like on my iPad or my sketchbook, I'll kind of like title it, and then I'll write out like what is the concept of this set. And it was really cool for Spangle. I got to sit down with Dillard and Ovoid, and it was a very like co-collaborative project. And the concept that me and Dillard kind of came up with, because he's also struggled, you know, with losing friends in the scene to overdose as well. He was very close to Charles. And that was my first time ever performing with him. We were able to do a cool dedication for Charles. That was my first headlining visual set ever. And it was super special to him because he was playing all these Charles tracks that he was, you know, unreleased collaboratives with him, and turning around, I feel like getting to see the visuals of like art of Charles that I had planned. And we didn't even know we were going to do that, but I knew he was friends with him. I had a thought that he might like play a song or two. So it was a really special moment. And I kind of like took the concepts that we had from 2 years ago or however long that was, and translating it into kind of like my like seasonal depression and kind of dealing with the loss of a loved one to overdose.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it is, especially like during winter. I feel like being from Florida, it was like it just like everything felt colder. So this set specifically is like about like seasonal depression, losing people, and having to deal with like kind of being stuck inside and not really having like an escape from those emotions, and how we can kind of like create like good energy by, you know, like doing good things for our body and trying to go outside, and, you know, knowing that like drugs isn't going to help. It's just like kind of passing time. And as like the winter, you know, goes on, we start looking forward to spring. And as like the snow melts, like I kind of portray it as like our emotions and our sadness melting and having something to look forward. So I start out with like the stage was, I really like incorporating like, how can I look at the stage design when I get the pixel map? I'm like, how can I use this in a like a cool way? Like I love when VJs use like create like a special border, or like make the screen look like it's a different shape, like by using like negative space. So I saw that it was a big LED wall with a small skinny like rectangular panel in front of the DJ booth, and to me it just like looked like a window, like the windowsill in the window. And I thought that would be a really cool way to open up the first night by like making the stage look like, you know, it was a bigger visual piece. And then I kind of try to like do logo stuff. I know a lot of like in the tipper scene, they're not about logos, but I found like a way to kind of this is like Dillard's. Yeah, so it's kind of like more of a animation of like the layers of the logos coming in, so it's like not just like something stagnant. And I just kind of keep building on top of that. And this was like kind of my favorite part to start out a show. I feel like I've ever done. I incorporated like text, which is something I don't often do, but when you have a big flat LED wall, you know it's going to be legible. Like I thought it would be an interesting thing to try out for the first time. I've never like done this before. So these are actually like entries that I like have typed into like my iPad, and like I kind of like reiterated them to be like diary entries, poems. So this was like on the beginning of the set, and I just wanted to like make it a very clear like dedication. So that's why I chose to do text. And it starts with, to those of us who are no longer with us, may they live forever through our hearts and through our art. And that like moment, it was like everyone I feel like was like clapping, and like it was a really cool moment. And I was actually there with my best friend. She was like her first time seeing me VJ. She was close with Austin, who passed away. So it was like a cool moment, I feel like, for us and our friend group too, to get this like sense of closure. And then I kind of like transition into definitely do a lot of fun like meditative abstract masking. So I have a lot of these like touch designer clips that are like very smooth meditative. clips that I layer with one of my favorite blend modes on Resolume, which is like one of the default ones it comes with, is 50 distance, and it's like creates put it over, and you have like a clip that has like a black background, or it's like transparent background. It really creates a cool negative space effect, and negative space is a huge I feel like it's like something I learned watching Jonathan Singer over the years. Like having art that's not always filling the big LED screen, so like the eyes can kind of have a rest and they can kind of like follow what's going on. Like it's not like I'm like, you know, so like people I feel like I notice like end up like staring at the screens, and I'm like, oh, that's like, let's give their eyes a little gentle break. Like not always having a lot of like the beginning clips are like these super like bright windows. They like read really white on the screen. So if I'm gonna do something super bright, I'll try to transition to something that's like, okay, that's way darker. It's gonna give people a time, like a moment for their brain to relax. And that's like something that I definitely, you know, I've seen other artists like incorporate that, but it comes a lot with like the psychology background is like a lot of these people are on substances, and I have kind of like this power
responsibility
almost. So I'm kind of like taking it a step further when I'm putting a set, especially for someone like a performance like Spangle. I know like he has a fucking song about DMT. I know these people are getting down, and it's honestly a pretty conscious group. Like it was a very awesome crowd. I was loving it. But I think about that. I think like, oh yeah, you know, these people are taking psychedelics. I'm the first opener taking that to consideration. People are arriving. I don't want to overstimulate them as they're like arriving. So the way I set up like an opening set is definitely how different than how I'd approach a headliner set. I definitely go for more organic realism for openers, because like people are coming in and like I feel like it's, you know, seeing nature, seeing something fluid, seeing something simple on the eyes is like they're all coming up. You got to give them like an easy come up. So I definitely take that, like all of those thoughts into consideration when I'm building out a set. So I kind of like go through, and I love having like, you know, a combination of, so like these are some paintings that I think Dillard and his partner made a lot of these themselves, hand painted them. So we incorporated like a lot of his paintings that I kind of would like add little animations or AI edits to it. So it's not just like, thank you. Yeah, so it's not like all one. So cool.
Sorry.
You're good. I love it. I think I have an effect on here. That's what I'm trying to, there we go. So I kind of try to keep a variety of different art forms. And, you know, if there's like painters in the scene that I know are like close with the artist, we'll try to reach out to them. And, you know, I think, so I have just Ovoid set on the other tab. That was the second night. We have a painting that was his album cover art, which was really cool to incorporate. And I wish I could give him a shout out. I don't know his name. I can't like think of it at the moment. But like when we showed him the clip of like this was like pretty much the album cover here. Looks like that, but it's like a little different. So we made all these cool animations of the painting. And it's like another, just, you know, bringing another part of the community into the set. So that was a fun thing that I incorporated in both of those sets. And then, yeah, this was one of my favorite parts of Dillard's set, back to his, so it was, you know, talking about, so I had the text that goes, it was back on the window, but I'm just going to put this up for winter is a lot colder this year. I'm going to speed this up for our sake of time. Without you. On freezing days like this, I miss you and Florida's warmth. And it was like the clip of, you know, the still frosty window, and then it came into like I think I have like a scene where I'm like, it's like writing on the fog, and it's like a frowny face and then a question mark. some of the clips are a little out of order because the show is over now, obviously.
Right.
So it's definitely just like, you know, like I'm like putting my phone outside of my window, like just taking videos, like this is stuff that I was doing like during the winter, like while like these were things that I was just doing. And I honestly not at the time had no idea they would ever like be in a visual set. So
Right.
a lot of times when I'm just like making my art, it's just like for myself. And then it ends up like 6 months later, I'm like, whoa, I could like use this and that would be super interesting and different. And then I like shot this scene just like at my house in my bathroom with like overlaid of like the snow, and I'm wearing one of my favorite hoodies. And I feel like stuff like that is super like it stands out. Like you don't need to show like your face crying, but like that hoodie with like that NF like title, it just like stood out to me. And then I kind of get into like some more like I would say specific to drug, like I've never done a set like this before, so is why I'm stoked to share it. It's also going to be, the full thing is going to be posted to YouTube. Yeah, so this is a collaborative clip. This is a friend of mine helped me create that. I'm not the best like 3D animator, but I actually just I am prescribed Vyvanse, and I like opened the pill, so it was like kind of a collaborative thing. And then she made like a 3D render of it. She's not a VJ, she just like went to school with me, and I'm actually kind of teaching her the VJ skills. So we've been doing a lot of cool like collaborative clip editing. And then this transitions into a video of my friend's eye who's like tearing up. So I always like, if it's a clip of someone else, I'm always going to add my clips to it as well to create kind of like a scene to it. So I kind of like, that was a very straightforward like drugs makes me cry, like this, like I've been on this shit and I hate it, very like in your face. And that's not usually the approach I try to go. I'm more like subtle with it, but I really wanted to take advantage of this massive crowd at Mission Ballroom to like put something out there that was very meaningful to me. So this is the first time I've done something very like directly like awareness, like might be a little controversial. But I think because I only showed those clips for so long, it wasn't like a huge part of the set. I don't think it has like had a negative effect whatsoever. And then because after scenes like that, I would go into stuff like, all these effects are a little whack right now. Something like this, a lot of people came up to me after the set and was like, dude, just like that one clip was like made me tear up. I feel like, you know, like showcasing like the drugs and like this is a sad set, like also like being like, yo, it's okay though, it's like was a very important part. It was because I wasn't trying to put across like y'all got problems figured out. It's like, no, like these are my problems. I'm sharing my problems with you. This is not, you know, you guys need to do better. It's like, this is my story of how much I've struggled, and I am really grateful for the opportunity to like release it and show like people that like you can make beauty from those times of darkness. This was like one of a clip that I edited. So a lot of this you can see was like formatted to like fit within the window, and then I did have another layer of clips that like incorporated the logo and stuff as like still sitting on the windowsill. But yeah, I kind of just continue transitioning through, and as you can see, I'm not even showing you any effects I use because it's just really not a big part of my process. Blend modes, like, you know, the layer blender,
speed,
that is like
that
for me. And I actually, so I normally, let me grab my MIDI board real quick. So I always travel with, I just use I got a lobster in it right now. The Launch Control XL, that's like my go-to travel MIDI. Because like, as you can see, I only utilize 8 layers mostly. And it's really about blending them together. And then I usually only have like the first 2 rows mapped, and that's all like, definitely speed is the big thing that I'm like always keeping an eye on. I don't do anything audio sync. I don't even know how Resolume audio syncs. I mean, I do, but I pretend to. It's just like not something I ever want to really do. And I'm not a time coder. I do every set has always been like 100% live. And I think that's one of the things I don't love about the Novation control is like you have to be so like
Exact.
yeah with your transitions, and Novation has like a little bit of a like a skip to it, and if you like slide your fader a little too quickly, it makes a really rough transition. And you'll see me like if you like watch me during a set, oh fuck, like that was too fast. Like I will like sometimes be like that, you know, like don't do another transition like that. And that's why I mean I know everyone knows like the APC40s, like these one is so much smoother of a transition, and like your knobs don't have like ticks to them, so it's like blending so much smoother. So I do regret not using this
So big
for the Mission Ballroom set. I'm more inclined to use the Novations because I have a fader that's like kind of I need to like get it checked out
Janky.
on this one.
Yeah.
So I used the APC for Rendezvous, which was like the high, you know, one of my biggest shows in my career, and that was like such a good decision just because when you're mixing to like side dub, like I would say like on a lower like BPM range, like that, like just sliding your clips with blend modes to me is like sometimes more effective than like adding all these like effects that you have to turn on and off.
Interesting.
Because a cool way, like when beats happen, I can just transition to the clip below or above instead of like adding an effect to the clip, because I don't really want the clip to change. I just want something to stimulate like the transition in the music. So when I record sets for YouTube, I'm always using the APC as well. I'm just a little scared to like overuse it because they have been discontinued, I feel like I've been told. But yeah, I have like 4 of the Novation launch controls because I just have like the warranty on it. So whenever they start acting up, they send me like a new one, which is great. But yeah, so this was like kind of a clip, you know, depicting like being tied down by like substances and being like chained to like that loop. Like this is like this one loop where I kind of had playing out where it was like this is like the loop of my life, you know. And then this is the full out clip. It transitions a little, and I have like utilized AI a lot in this set because I felt like Spangle, like Droid, like Android Jones and stuff. I knew that was kind of like, let's incorporate some really out there futuristic stuff. I normally am more on like the realism. Like this would be something I would go out and film on a beach, and then kind of like run through AI and stuff. But for lack of time and, you know, all of that, this is something that I did choose to run through AI, and I really liked how it turned out. So, you know, sometimes I'm for AI, sometimes I'm not, but I don't do anything AI generated. Everything is always coming from I'm filming something and like transforming
an
that.
effect or like some sort of post effects.
So that's where like
I also like how you blend between, you'll have the original and then you'll kind of fade in the layer on top. Very effective.
That's what I'm trying to find right now is an example of that. Yeah, so this, and I've gotten better to I notice when I just stack the clips, like they might not be timed perfectly. And like I might adjust the speed or something that might get completely off. So what I do now is I take it a step further. I will take the video clip. So this is Dillard's partner, Amanda. And so we filmed these clips at their house a few days before the show. And I put the original footage as a base layer in Premiere, and then I run the clip through AI with like I never make it more than like a 50% enhancement. So I would say everything generated, like the majority is like 50% AI, 50% me, or way lower AI.
Nice.
Like I don't want to go past like when I work with, say like when I'm curating clips for Zingara, she loves that AI shit. So we'll turn it up to like going from the real footage to like 100% AI. But that's not something that I would do unless like the client was like, yeah, let's run this. This is like my favorite amount right here. Just like, and I create like the prompts like myself and everything. And it's usually like in a form of a poem that I've written. So I feed like my prompts with like, 40, like I want it 60 frames per second, 4K, but I also will create like a poem. And I love working with like other females or male artists that have like poetry as like a outlet as well, because we can kind of create those like captions together. And it, when you feed that type of stuff, it's a whole nother art form attaching itself to AI that's coming from us. So that's why I feel like I love the way I use like my AI softwares. I don't think they could ever replace what I do, because I feed them the information that is being originally taken from me. It's not something that like words are explaining ever. So yeah, this is like one of my favorite ones that we shot. And then I loved, like I said, to, if I can find another way to like incorporate another art form that is like known in our scene on the stage, I think that's always really cool. So Amanda makes these candles. Here's the original clip. Like this is an example of one that has it below, I guess. Oh my God, so much going on. So I just took I let this candle burn and I just put it on top of a mirror and I set up a time-lapse video. And then I checked it and ran it through the softwares with like whatever prompts, and it came out very fun, and I'm excited to do more. Like I think time-lapse videos, like all like create, like this is a time-lapse video like from just like a stock clip, because these time-lapse videos take a very long time to take. So I wanted the cherry blossom specifically, and I don't have any locally. So something like this is like one of the few clips that I would choose, but a lot of the flower growth and plant growth I take myself, and I'm very excited that it's spring because it's time for plant time-lapse season.
Nice.
Yeah, but that
I
this
see
type
you
of,
also you're working on like the 7 biomes. I saw that in one of your websites, that you want to
yes,
be able to get
that's
like
definitely something that
totally
I'm
tons of
looking.
different biomes from around the world. So cool.
Yeah, I think there's something special, like, because I've been so blessed and have been able to travel so much and meet so many new people, see so many new things. I think that was a big part of my project, is like being able to show people these amazing, beautiful places that I've seen and kind of inspire them to, just go outside or kind of like explore new places. So for Ovoid Set, we did kind of like a similar story concept, but it was about like the clean water crisis and like just how we as Americans are just so out of tune to like waste as compared to like you go to Japan, people wouldn't think of dropping a piece of trash in Tokyo. You don't see trash cans and stuff. And I actually haven't been, but my brother has been and my friends have been. And they said it's just a conscious way of thinking. And I'm trying to like instill that in our like culture of America, because in Australia, it's the same thing. Their sustainability like techniques are so like, you see it, you see people like taking action and just being more aware. You go to a beach there and locals are coming up to you telling you like, don't use that type of sunscreen, it kills our reefs. And they're super cool, and they'll give you some of theirs. Like it's all of just about a conscious discussion as like a society. And I think putting stuff like this, like the floating trash as the girl is just like in the pool, but it looks like the ocean, like stuff like that is so effective. Because it's still visually pretty. It's not like I'm putting up like, the like recycling sign as like an animation, but like I put together this whole little like story. I'll start it from the beginning again, but it's like this walking on my beach at home, and then we litter, oh no. But it's like still this gorgeous sunset, it's still like that's just one part of the screen, I feel like. And like
Right.
people cheer during these scenes. Like you can,
Right, because
I
they
can
get what it's
see
about.
in Denver especially, like
Right.
people apparently, Ovoid's partner was like front row in the pit for his set, and she was like, dude, people were like crying, like looking at the LED walls, being like, this is so like real. And that's what I'm trying to bring, is like something
Mm.
real. We have a lot of AI, we have a lot of, you know, 3D, like beyond talent. Like I could never sculpt like Glass Crane. I could never,
Mm-hmm.
you know, do the like VR like Android Jones. And like I'm just like, I like stand in awe of them because it's not
Mm-hmm.
my talent. I've tried, like the VR stuff makes me so nauseous. Like I don't know how Andrew does that. I find it so crazy. But I think it's cool that I've found my like passion through film and taking real life, you know, videos and making them into like statement pieces. Um, and just like, yeah, I guess like using very much human figures.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love incorporating eyes. I think for like Spangle too, it was a very fitting theme to incorporate. So like we had a bunch of different like concepts with like eyes during this set. So this sequence is like going inside of a water bottle, just using like a micro camera, like going in and out. And then the eyes in the background is Ovoid's eye, my eye, and his partner's eye. So
Nice.
just like no one really knows that, but it was like we all
Eyeception.
were there. Yeah, exactly. Um, and then I think this was actually one of the scenes that Simon liked the most, which is
Nice.
like so crazy. It's like such a
Mm.
simple thing, just like a water droplet. Like stuff
Yeah.
like that is like, where is the beauty and like the simplicity of life?
Yeah.
You
For
know, it's
sure.
the
For sure.
little
For sure.
things. And I think it's like I could sit on this computer and design the most crazy like 3D and
Intricate.
you know, spend hours on it. And like for me, that's awesome, but like it's very hard to do that. It's hard on
Mm-hmm.
your back to sit for so many hours. It's hard
Mm.
on your eyes
Tell me
staring at
about
the
it.
computer. Yeah, you know, I don't need to even say it. Everyone knows. And I think that's what steered me away from a lot of the computer generated art. And this forces me to go on a hike, take a video, you know, go walk around and like just see like what stands out. Like it really gets me off of my computer and out into
Mm.
the world. And I think that is like what keeps me the most sane. I don't know how people sit on their computers all day. I obviously do all the time, but it's like, it's really like a sense of like, oh, this is great. Like I have to take a field trip day, you know,
Right.
we're shooting content today. I'm going to Ovoids and we're not, you know, I'm not going to just sit on my computer. Um, yeah. And this set was just like, it was a cool way to kind of like bring attention. And I wish I had more time to put more attention into like the subject of this set specifically, but we're working
Mm-hmm.
on the recording for YouTube and we're going to make
Oh,
sure
cool.
that like works really well, because we even shot like these, like the beginning. This was, I can't believe I skipped this one. This was like the main, like we let this play out for a bit. This was like the main clip of the set. And it was cool. Like Ovoid was all about being in the video,
Mm.
which like not many, I feel like, producers are. But I'm very much about like, let's bring music videos back. Like let's bring, who are these DJs? Like social media, being a face, being a present, it allows you to be relatable to your audience, and it makes
Right.
people more interested in following you. You're not like, there is something about like the mysteriousness of things, but I like to be
Mm-hmm.
a very personable artist, and I want females to be like, yeah, I can go up and talk to Stef.FX. Like she's so chill, you know, like that's what
Nice.
I
That's
want to
awesome.
be known as. But yeah, this was like one of my favorite sequences that we put together, and I hope to build off of stuff like this. So it's, we twist the faucet, thoughtless and sure, while others walk miles for a drop not pure, a stream for us, a dream for them, the world split by water again and again.
Dude, I love your infusing the text into the visuals. It's something that I I actually did, like, you know, like 10 years ago when I was really just first starting to VJ. I love Bill Hicks, so I had like a whole like Bill Hicks kind of like part
Oh, cool.
in one of my visuals. But you know, I don't think it worked. I was also in Israel, so like English wasn't like really hitting with the people, so it was kind of like, I don't know what this is. But you're doing it in such a
It's
nice
very
way, and
big.
it's you know, it's very you know, it works well. I like it. It's also a message, and you know, text could be a little bit kind of off-putting, but I like the way that you're doing it. I think it's really cool. Yeah, please keep on doing it.
Yeah, and I actually,
I'm
this
sorry.
was like a last minute addition to the sets. Like I was literally like typing the first night, I was typing the ending ones like live, like as it was going, just as a like I was so you can connect like sources through a I just connected my iPad through my capture card and had it as a layer with like the transparent like background effect. So like it was just overlaying it, and I was literally backspacing. So I was like making typos. I was like, this is so real though. It's like someone typing on their phone, and it's
Nice.
literally just with the Notes app. So I
That's
I
awesome.
tried like a lot of different like handwriting techniques and stuff, but I was like, this is gonna be the most relatable font text. Like everyone is thinking that they're like messaging this, like this is like
Right.
the iPhone text, you know.
Right.
So I definitely felt like it was a very it was the way that was most effective for me to add text, because it is interesting you say that. I think a lot of people try to stay away from it, and
Yeah, it's not.
typography was the one class I got a B in college. So text and
Nice.
art has always been like a stay away, and I would never
Right.
do this on like I did main stage Wakan, for example, and it was like
Yeah.
a bunch of triangle screens. Like that would never read well on a stage
Right.
like that. But like
Right.
working with this team specifically, they love their
Mm.
big LED walls because everyone's art is like just showcased how it should be.
Right.
So yeah, that was a it's really nice to get a big LED wall because you kind of can do whatever you want with the
Oh yeah, for
screen.
sure. For sure. For sure.
Yeah. And this is some of the nature clips that I have. This is
Beautiful.
a video from Alaska I took
This is you took
back.
these videos? Amazing.
Yeah, me or my
Dang.
dad took. Yeah, and then I
Dang.
ran that through AI as well. Like, so it's like the
Cool.
ice
Cool. Cool. Cool.
falling. So I definitely try to focus on like scenes of nature that show very physically like global warming in a lot of places I feel like no one will ever get to see, or like they might see something like this and just be like, whoa, like that's crazy, you know, like not really understand what it's like to see that in front of you. But it's crazy when you
Right.
go to Alaska and you do a lot of the hikes out there by these glaciers, they have
Mm-hmm.
markers of where the ice used to be and where it's
Right.
receded,
Wow.
and
That's crazy.
it's miles back to where it was. So it was really cool. You know, it's cool to take these trips and to see these things and be able to capture, you know, it takes like forever to we probably took 200 videos just to capture this one moment. So it is like a game with nature. Like I don't know if I'm ever going to capture a moment like this, you know.
Right.
Like this was like that one shot that I was like, whoa, like I'm like, you're going to be famous, clip, you're going to be famous. That's what I
Yeah.
always say. Or I like find a cute bug. I'm like, this bug doesn't know how famous he's gonna be. I get so excited when I like know a clip is gonna
That's
like
funny.
go hard. Yeah. And then so I have like just some more clips I took like this at the sand dunes out in Colorado, and I played this when Ovoid was dropping his song Where the Fire Once Burned. So it was like when that song was transitioning. So I had like a bunch of like the world was burning, like after ice is melting, world is heating up,
Wow.
like all these global warming. And then I found drone footage. My friend was living in Maui at the time of all those fires, so
Oh
she
wow.
was able
Yeah.
to find some clips like from that actual location.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then it went to like, so that song was The Fire Once Burned, the world was burning, and then the smoke kind of cleared. I had a few other clips in here, and then it kind of transitioned into the desert area,
Wow.
and I kind of put the like pollution like symbolism back in there as well. But yeah, I find like just like earth formats really pleasing to the eye, because like they create those textural effects that like look kind of psychedelic, especially if you like, let's say we add like a mirror effect, you know, like that
Super
to its
cool.
own, like
Yeah,
it's
nature
just
is very
earth.
psychedelic for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like, I just feel like I don't know need to do much to it. Like some of these clips I took like, you know, 3 hours to hike to, and that was like the effort for the art, in my opinion. Like it's just like a different way. It's like people had to put that effort into getting to the spot to take the footage. So to me, it doesn't need that much. It's like that was what it was. It was like a whole journey to see this spot and like create something more out of the memory than to be like trying to send people to a new planet. I'm just trying to
Right.
show people that our
The
planet's
beauty of
pretty
the
fucking,
planet. Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
yeah.
I remember seeing these ones with the bags as well. It's super, you know, kind of like, I like the message behind it. It's very clear, but it's also not like in your face. Kind of like the bottle with the sunset. You know, it's kind of giving you that
Yeah, this clip
feeling.
was inspired by the, you know, do you ever feel like a plastic bag?
Yeah. What is that
Through
movie?
the-
American Beauty.
yes, it Katy Perry, you know, good old time. And I love Katy Perry specifically because a lot of her songs are written by Ellis Dream's wife, who's like a fantastic, like probably like triple platinum like songwriter. So I love like the songs that she's like very much I would say sorceress like vocalist. So a lot of her lyrics I'll like go through and kind of like translate her poetry into imagery. I like doing that a lot. Visual poetry is something that I would define like my artistic style as. I've started to realize I try to do a visual poem on Instagram for the full moons. It's kind of hard sometimes to have that consistency, but I think that's like a good posting consistency that I have. Like, try to put one meaningful reel out there per month. I definitely think social media is a great tool, but it's like if you're good at what you do, you don't need to focus on social media as much as people make it seem. I have been told that because the amount of followers I have, I shouldn't like have my name as like big on flyers and stuff. I'm like, it's really not about how many followers you have. It's
Not at
about
all.
how quality your art is and like how engaging who is following you is.
Yeah.
And like your following will build. Like if you're focused on like, I honestly don't even want that big of a following now because I'm like, I've been doing this for 3 years. Like, imagine where I will be in 10 years. Like my voice will be so much stronger. I'll have so much more experience and be able to speak on that experience. Like
Yeah.
there's just so much more to focus on than social media. And I really just put my like banger clips out there and I don't really care how many likes they have, but they're out there and that's like all I really focus on. I'm not trying to be like, I'm definitely a good voice on social media, but I'm not trying to be like an influencer. I'm just trying to share my day-to-day life and be authentic. I'm not really trying to like be like, oh, I'm girl is doing on Instagram every single day, you know?
Right. 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 Right.
But yeah, that was kind of like my highlight clips from the set and kind of
Super awesome. I loved seeing all that. You know, it's it's interesting because it's like when it comes to loops and Resolume, it's like I always think I've seen it all. I've always think I've like, you know, oh, I know what it's gonna be. I know it's gonna be. But then everybody has such a unique approach. Everybody has such a unique style, and I really love your kind of you know, your real video that's layered with AI or effects or whatever it is that you're doing. It just grounds everything. It also feels like, you know, it's not stock footage. It's not like, you know, curated. It's like a lot more personal to you. It's really felt. So I love that. And you're kind of, you know, there's nothing more, what's the word I'm looking for? There's nothing more exciting for me than people approaching visuals like movies or like a film, because that's the same way that I do it. You know, I do it in 3D, but like that's really the same thing of like using and utilizing the storytelling techniques of film to impart an emotion, impart intention. It's very powerful. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. For anybody who is interested and looking for more, definitely go check out all things Stef.FX. And Stef also offers lessons and tutoring and tutorials. So, you know, reach out to her. She's readily available. Would that be correct?
Yes. And I love offering lessons to females specifically.
Hell yeah.
And I do them like either via Discord or like in person in Denver, because I honestly think that part of me, like still like wanting to be like that art teacher, was like my first kind of, oh yeah, that's a job in the art scene. Like my mom was a teacher, so I feel like giving back to the industry that I struggled learning in, because there wasn't as like accessible knowledge online. Now there's like VJ Academy. Like I think that's so cool. And
yeah, it's awesome.
There's all these tools that like people are coming to me with already like the beginner skills, and really I just have to help them cross the bridge with like the program learning curve, you know? So it's really like, it's scary and intimidating. And if you have someone willing to, hey, come out to my event and I'll like show you how this, like the setup is, that's like where the learning curve is like you can be so self-taught, but until you get into that live like setting, you have no idea what to expect, you know? So I always try to, I don't always like guest list friends and stuff, because a lot of my friends have different music tastes. So if I have someone that's eager to learn, like they're going to be the one that's getting that guest list, you know, like my friends, my best friends are not always like the people I'm prioritizing, like bringing to events and stuff. Like if there's someone out there wanting, I'm like, come along with me, be my assistant. I'll show you how it is.
Hell yeah. Yeah, speaking about women, you know, you have obviously a really good perspective of this, and I always try to, whenever I have a lady on the podcast, I always want to get their perspective, you know, because I think it's important to, you know, it's important to empower all types of people, but it's important to get the perspective of women, because we just don't always get it. You know, I hear from lots of women, and I see on myself as well that it's difficult to be of the opposite sex in this industry, and I'd love to just get your perspective on it. You know, you're such a good person to impart perspective and education, whether it's harm reduction, whether it's, you know, your opinion about you know, the way that you perform, whether it's your teaching. So getting your perspective on this would be really awesome.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like kind of like a stigma to say like females like shouldn't be like in front of house and all this and all that. I think it's more of like an intimidation thing to be like, it hasn't been done as much, but that's like kind of with every job. Like I think right now as artists, like you can be on social media and like be posting your visual art and no one knows gender. Like it's not associated until like you're in these live environments. For me, it's a little different. I'm very like put my face on social media and people know me like off of the brand. But someone who I work super closely with is who's a big inspiration to me, Laya Visuals. You go on her Instagram.
She's awesome.
You never know that she's a girl, you know, like, and I think that's super cool. When I worked with Tipper's team, they were like, you know, it's not really on us that we haven't worked with that many females, because we're not going being like, are they a girl or a boy? We're just listening, looking at the, and I honestly like took a step back, and because I asked Dave, Tipper's manager, I'm like, am I only the second girl you guys have worked with? And they're like, yeah, but like, I hope you don't take that like the wrong way, because we do want to support like females. It's just more about like, we just hire people off the quality of art, you know, like we just are seeing what we're seeing being shared. And if there's more females being pushed and like introduced to us, of course, like we're more than welcome. But right now it's like people work with their friends. Production companies are built off of friends wanting to create a space. So I don't necessarily think it's like, oh, people like purposely didn't want females involved. It's like, that's just like how the past kind of worked. And now it's more about like, if you have a good attitude, like it doesn't matter like what you look like. But if
Totally.
I go in like acting like a bitch, acting like I need special treatment because
Right.
I'm a female, I've noticed that's where it kind of like causes some issues. Like, of course, I can stand my ground saying like, I don't really feel comfortable with you guys like making these types of jokes or this or that, or like something Jonathan Singer always does. Like when I'm on a team with all his boys, he's like, all right, guys, like, let's kill it. And then he's like, and girl. And I'm like, I'm one of the boys. Like, I don't care. Like, I try to separate myself from comments like that, because I think if you let every little thing get to you, you're never going to feel comfortable. You kind of have to put your emotions aside. And I know, like, I am a badass, and if I just sit quiet and show them I know what I'm doing, they're not going to make jokes ever again. To me, it's more like you got to earn your stripes in this community, no matter you're a male or a female. So I think a lot of females come in getting discouraged because it is like a little unfamiliar, and you got to understand that it's unfamiliar for like them as well. They don't know like how to act with like these cute girls, like acting like badass bitches, like controlling the LEDs, like setting up the LEDs, like doing the audio engineering. Like I see females doing all the positions. It's just definitely more rare. And I think it's about showing up, standing your ground, knowing that you can crush your job. Because then no one's gonna like stand in your way. Like you might get a little heat to begin with, but like everyone does. It's really like when I came into this scene, I was very much like, I have it hard. I'm one of the first like females. I'm painting this path, like 4 females behind me. But in a way, like I kind of had to like bite my tongue a little bit, because at the same time, it's like, they've been doing it this way for so long. If I don't show them like, hey, this is kind of like, if I'm not nice and explain how like it makes me comfortable to be treated, they're never gonna know, and that's not their fault. I think it's like definitely about being able to stand up for yourself and not get easily offended. It's definitely hard. I would say like females run more emotional. I definitely take things to heart, especially when I'm showcasing art that is so personal and meaningful to me. If I'm working with another VJ and they're like yelling something at me, like the brightness is too high or something, like I can't take that personally. I have to like, I always try to, whenever anyone like says anything to me or it seems off or unwelcoming or rude, I try to just take a deep breath and brush it off, because no matter if I were a guy or a girl, the situation is still very high pressure. Everyone is still just trying to make the show go on, and people are fucking tired, and it is so hard to be your most respectful self when you're exhausted. So I try to like take it all with a grain of salt, because when I first started, I was very like defeated and wanted respect and wanted to be treated exactly how I wanted. But like, you can't expect everyone to like act how you want them to. You have to like be verbal and explain that type of stuff. It's really all about open communication and realizing like it's loud in this environment. People might not hear me that great. Like you really have to sit with yourself. And yeah, it's a lot of like mental strength, I would say, because there are certain things that I have like been talked to in certain ways, and it has like made me walk away and get upset. But I've noticed like there's always going to be somebody ready to take my place. So if I don't suck it up a little bit, like I can always go and talk to my friends and get like support. And a really awesome way is like, I usually bring a friend into front of house with me, another girl that can sit with me, and like usually it creates a little bit more respect. Yeah. Totally. And I don't go in there like demanding all of this. I go in kind of with my head down. I perform my art, and then I'm like, yeah, like I should get respected, like, cause I just proved that. I
Nice.
think it's a very like double-edged sword, because there's days that I go in and I'm just like, I can't do this. I cannot be like around this energy. But I do think like if it's bad energy, I just stop working with that team, because there's always someone else that's going to be more respectful. So at the end of the day, yeah, you have to like take things with a grain of salt and bite your tongue and like get like tough skin. But there's also like, if you're uncomfortable, just it's quite a statement to just never work with that team again. You know, and you don't even have to
100%.
tell them why. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't
So
have to
that's
be vocal about it and make it drama or anything. You just have to like you said, you don't work with them. Maybe you tell the people around you. Maybe warn people that you care about. But like you said, like yeah, if people are mistreating you, then you have to speak out. It's just that the way you do it. I think Shelby said it so nicely when we were talking about this, because she has a very specific way of looking at this whole thing. You know, she's like, if you see something, you have
yeah,
to say something. Does that mean that you have
exactly.
to be dramatic about it? Does that mean you have to go online and do it? No, go and tell the people that are being affected directly. And that's also
Exactly.
a lot more effective than being dramatic about it, because when you go online and be dramatic about it, people are going to argue with you. They're going to disagree with you. They're going to, no, but this guy, no, this guy. And if you go directly and say, hey, I saw you do this thing, it's not cool. They have the opportunity to apologize. They have the opportunity to step back. They have the opportunity to learn. And if they don't take that opportunity, that's when you can be like, well, this person is a piece of shit. A,
Yeah.
people around them should know it. And B, if they continue to be this way, they're just going to do themselves their own, they're just harming themselves. So they're going to
Right.
already cause themselves their own problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I do
and
think I
obviously
do
it's,
try a little
yeah,
bit to
please.
be sometimes difficult. Like I said, like I'm like, you know, if I end up being so hard to work with that no one wants to work with me, I can deal with that, because I do know I am one of like the first females doing a lot of like VJ work, working with a lot of different teams. So I do try to make it very known and am very verbal, because I know other women are gonna be more timid coming
Mm-hmm.
in. So if
Mm-hmm.
I like can at least be vocal, it will pave the
Right.
path for females after me. And I have worked with
Nice.
teams being like, you know, you are difficult to work with. And for me, if someone's saying that I'm difficult to work with, it just means like their standards are here and mine are here. And that's a creative difference with a
Mm-hmm.
project. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm better than them, like I don't want to work with them. And
Right.
it's more like they're better off working with someone who is
That's
more like
aligned
comfortable with that.
with, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
And
sure.
it's nothing against them. It's just like
Yeah.
you have to
People have
know
different standards.
a lot of connections in this industry are to teach you a lesson. They're not
Yeah.
for like the long term.
Mm.
I think a lot of connections are to teach you where you're supposed to be and how to like proceed, not
Interesting.
necessarily as like, hey, you got this book in with this artist and like, yep, now
Right.
you're there VJ. It's like kind of like every client and every festival and every production team is a way for me to learn more about myself as an artist and
Mm.
learn who I don't want to work with, because you can go off and say it's hard as a female to work in the tipper scene, in this scene, like that's more where it's specific. I feel like there's certain areas where it's like it's probably going to be a little more intense. So
Mm.
I think it's like good to like ease yourself in and finding like teams that are a lot more inclusive, like working on a production team who has other females. Like that is a way better like environment than going in and starting with like, you know, like a team of all guys that have been working together for 10 years, you know.
Right.
It's like you have to understand that like there's a level of like comfortability with like, you know, I
Okay.
sometimes like when I work at Swanee, the one of the lighting technicians, he's been running that stage for 10 years. So you come
Yeah.
in and it is his stage, you know, like
Yeah.
you know, like that's like the energy, and you kind of have to set your ego as an artist aside and realize like, okay, I'm in someone else's house. Like I always like refer to front of house as like it literally is like you're coming in and like how would you want to enter into like another person's home, you know, that you're just like visiting. Like that's just how I try to go about it. And like if it is high pressure, I always am like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to be really short with you guys because we need to be efficient. And I think a lot of people take like efficiency as rudeness in the scene, and you kind of have to just be like, hey, I'm not trying to be bitchy, but like this needs to be done now, and I'm yelling because it's fucking loud. I'm not yelling to be rude. And it only takes that one sentence for everyone to be like, oh, okay, cool. Because I have
get into the same alignment.
I have gone into front of houses and be like, what the fuck is going on? Like what? Like what? And no, and that's the wrong energy to come in with. Like, don't start the fire is what I've always like.
Totally. Front of house should be a chill place where there's not aggression, and like you said, be the cool, calm, collected person at front of house. You're gonna be remembered as that for sure.
You're gonna have to just laugh things off. Like I think the most annoying thing that I get a lot is like when I come into front of house with my gear and I'm like ready to set up, and I've had like, you know, sound engineers or like people who are just in front of house, like guests and artists being like, oh, like who's your boyfriend? Who are you dating? And I just like don't acknowledge that stuff, you know, like you don't need to like let people affect you, you know, like it's a lot more powerful to just hold your own and just if I just don't reply to him, I'm gonna be like, that was insignificant to me. I didn't even need to give that my attention. You know, you don't always have to stand up for yourself to the point where it's like immensely exhausting. Like you shouldn't have to.
For sure.
I think as a DJ, my art speaks for itself. I don't need to speak as much as like I used to always be like fighting my battles, like defending myself, and it's fucking exhausting. Like you don't need to like just show your work and like people will shut the fuck up.
Totally. Yeah. Prove yourself through doing. Well, thank you for that perspective. You know, it's always interesting to hear different perspectives on this, and the more that I hear, then the better I understand, and you know, can
getting better. Every front of house I go to now, I'm just like, it's getting better. It's cool.
Nice. So another thing is, you know, talking about this kind of like this you know, being aware of the people around you, you know, the front of house, being in a good way, and this kind of thing. You write a lot about conscious partying and sacred spaces. You're obviously a very a spiritual person. You know, you have writing a lot about spiritual and nature and those things kind of intersecting. I also am a spiritual person. You know, I like to connect through multiple different facets of reality or spirituality, whatever. Yeah, like, where does it meet you? How does it affect your art? What is your like connection with spirit? And how do you think we can bring these things into our partying habits?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always like, I think I kind of struggled with like the concept of like religion and my beliefs. I was very like forced into this very strict like Catholic upbringing, which was super confusing to me. So in college, I also like for one of my just like random course classes, I took world religions to just kind of learn about the like major beliefs all around the world. And I kind of like developed my own like spirituality through that. And I think everyone can kind of go about like spirituality in like their own way. Like I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think believing in something is like the only reason that keeps me going. So I do think it's a huge part of my project. I'm not sure like what I would define my spirituality as, but I don't think it should be defined in a way. I don't think it should be. But I do think it is like, I see like showcasing my art as like a way to give people like a sense of healing. There is so much healing that crosses over within the art world, like Western religions, like specifically. I try to like think of every set as like, this is like a ceremony where I'm showcasing my art that has healed me, and I'm hoping that like carries over to people. I like to use a lot of like I would say like chakra symbolism, definitely. More on that side of like spirituality, a lot of like yoga type spirituality. That is definitely, yoga and meditation has been like my main source, I feel like, of spirituality that has helped me grow as a person. So I think just symbols like that showcase that are important to me. But I think it's more about like showing like just respect of others and like love, like always like
Yeah.
expressing love through my clips is a big concept.
Beautiful.
Because I do think it's like it's cool that I've already performed for crowds that are huge. I feel like one day I'll be doing a lot more international stuff, and I think it's important to like respect all different types of like beliefs and stuff. So I don't really like hyper focus on like spirituality as much as I used to, because I
Okay.
want like my art to be like for everyone. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think my own spiritual journey of like kind of like being okay with myself and my journey
Right.
to sobriety is like a huge message that carries over. It doesn't
Nice.
need to be so like specific and in your face, but I think I'm still figuring all of that out. I'm only 25, so I feel like coming off of the harsh like Catholic upbringing, like I'm still
Mm-hmm.
really finding my
Finding your path.
spiritual path. And
Mm.
I think creating art is just like allowing me to figure that out, I guess.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, that's such an interesting concept, because I just know all these other artists too. They're like, your art is from the DMT realm. Like you have like all this super spiritual, deep, like third, fifth dimensional art. And I really just I feel like all of that comes from my dream state. I'm a very
Mm.
lucid dreamer, and I
Nice.
think a lot of my like spiritual like downloads or like messages come from like that dream realm.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love the Dream Realm. Obviously, Rem is my artist name, so that's like a big
Yes, I
thing
love
that I
that.
love. It's first of all, I don't want to sound too weird, but I'm so jealous that you're so young. You're so lucky. Um,
I
enjoy.
feel old
Um,
already though, so
no, no, don't be silly. You're, you
the
know,
body is saying other things.
you're at a, it's very interesting because like I said, I had a similar upbringing to you where my whole life, my whole spiritual journey was separating belief and a religion, because those things are like not mutually exclusive, or sorry, they are mutually
Right.
exclusive. And, you know, it's something that when we were grown up, we were taught that they're not mutually exclusive and that they're totally together. But
Hmm.
when you start getting away from these dogmatic ideas and these strict kind of like ideologies, then you realize that, like you said, like there's no one way to be connected to something. There's no one way to praise something. There's no one way to be appreciative of something. And there's no one way to connect to a higher power or higher being, whatever you want to call it. And, through this podcast, I also come to realize that a lot of times people that aren't even spiritual, they have ideas and connections to things they don't even realize are spiritual. We talk
Right.
a lot about flow states, and I talk a lot about math with people, about like
Hmm.
math and nature. And to me, those things are divine. Yeah, okay, you don't have to put it in the prism of spirituality and divinity, because like whatever, that's just like
Hmm.
words. But when you think about like the ineffable truth about things and how they're so powerful and so something that we can't explain, that to me is belief. That to me is some sort of ideology that isn't
Totally. Yeah.
forced and isn't like, inside of a structure, which I think is somewhat of a belief. So yeah, I think that when you're young and you're kind of like still finding the things that to you are the things that trigger the really positive aspects of what you want to be spiritual about, it's such a beautiful time because it's explorative, and it's like a
Mhm.
time where you really can, it doesn't end. Yeah, like I still like meet new things all the time, and I still create for myself new practices through, learning new things. So it's like it doesn't end. But I think when you're at the beginning of that journey, it's a very exciting time, because really, like, once you make that distinction between like, okay, I'm on a spiritual path of a belief, of a system that doesn't have to be dogmatic, doesn't have to be in rules, and can be anything, it's very freeing. And it's very exciting because it kind of allows you to, like you said, like you're not even trying to do like DMT realm stuff, but then people are connecting to it in that sense. And that's like a
Mhm.
very good indication that like that you're on some sort of like you know, what's the word, like some sort of state, like altered state or higher state. So just continue with that, you know, and it will continue to evolve and show you things that, you know, that are meant for you to see. So another thing that I thought was interesting to talk about, talking about all this positive foo-foo stuff, let's go down a little bit to the more serious and, you know, real stuff. You mentioned it a few times, you know, and we talked about it before, seasonal depression. You know, what does that mean to you? And like, you know, I think that everybody has like down times, you know, I definitely have down times, you know, being a father, being in a relationship, like, you know, just being a person, right? You're going to have moments of negativity. You're going to have moments that you feel like shit. You're going to have moments where you don't want to get out of bed. You're going to have moments where you're not having any motivation of anything. And I think it's like a totally human thing. But at the same time, I know many people battle with extreme of that, and they have to do, you know, self-help or self-medication. I mean, I go to therapy, so that definitely is something that helps me. But everybody has their path, and, you know, for me, creating art wasn't always an answer to feeling down. As I get older, I do realize and notice that when I am feeling down, if I make that small little push to go on the computer and like try to do something that's not just social media or some bullshit, I snap out of it much faster. But it was it is very, very hard for me to do that, because when I'm down, I just want to sit in bed and watch TV or whatever, you know, do nothing. So, you know, yeah, I mean, like, I guess kind of like, what's your perspective on it, and maybe some guidance to people that are going through it as well?
Yeah, I think it's my depression has been such a journey too, because I definitely grew up in like a financially stable household. My parents, you know, they supported me, I would say, more than most average. I had a lot of like traumatic stuff happen, and I think that's like I bottled a lot of that up, and I had a lot of outlets as a young kid, like with gymnastics and everything. And I think as I started to lose certain outlets, I think that's when I started feeling depression for the first time. And it was confusing, you know, confusing for me, confusing for my parents, because they grew up in that age where mental health just wasn't really talked about as much. And I think it was hard for them to understand why I was getting so sad, because like, you know, on paper, we technically had like a really good life as kids. And it was
Amazing.
it was almost more difficult because I felt guilty for being depressed a lot of the times, and was always kind of like trying to find the reason. And, you know, a lot of times, like, the reason is just like, could just be a chemical imbalance, or it's just, you know, it's something that you can't find the source of it on your own. And I think that's the most difficult part, is being like, I'm so sad. I'm so like, I don't know why I can't get out of bed. And like, I can't explain that to anyone. And like, you almost kind of start feeling like a burden. And it definitely is something that I feel like people push to be hidden and try to ignore. And I think the moment that I started talking about it with people, I started realizing how many people feel the same way, and kind of finding a community is when I like first was like, okay, this is okay. And like, there's a lot of options like for me to talk about what I'm going through and get help. It's just that initial, like, I guess, admitting that like you need help, and like people kind of not understanding. But I think that's like why, like you said, when you get on your computer, you kind of force yourself to do that. Like, it's a very special type of art that's made. And I think it's more of like becoming a habit for me, that like, oh yeah, instead of like sulking, like there is this other outlet. But I think for me, I don't try to straight go to my computer. I don't try to straight like start making art, I usually try to like put the energy into some type of motion first, like physically. I think there's just such a big like tie between physical like activity and mental health. Like if I am like so depressed I can't get out, like the one thing I will like force myself to do is to just like go sit outside and go walk outside.
Yeah.
And then that can usually start the process of, you know, being able to like have an actual outlet to process the emotions. I think now it's a good time of age where people are feeling more comfortable to talk about things. I think something that has been like important for me when I'm sad, and you know, I doing something to get that emotion out is very important, but also like being real about it. Like I might go on social media and instead of, you know, posting about the great hike that I did take, I might post a photo on my story of like me crying and then like the beautiful nature. Like I try to be really authentic and personal on social media to show people like, yeah, I have a lot of success. I do really cool shows all over. I have such a cool life for someone who just sees it on Instagram, but like someone who sees me on Instagram is also going to see like these really hard times, and I think it makes other people a little less scared because they're, oh, this is like all like artists go through this and it's just like a part of the process. Once you start realizing that like mental health is like, it's just a part of life, and it's like it's gonna be challenging, but it's just it's another part of like the journey that you have to like give a little bit of attention to and kind of like understand it. And I think art is like a great way for people to kind of like understand and process things that aren't like easy to say or to put in like such a direct like definition. I think like a lot of techniques of like visual mental health, like the I always mess up the scientist's name, the Rauschenberg blotter art. Like there's a lot of techniques that are actually used like in art therapy for kids that I do research on, incorporate into sets, because there are a lot of people that like might just not know that there are a lot of these resources and stuff. So I think like being able to share as much information on resources or just like putting stuff out there that is gonna secondhand like give an effect, like they might not know it, but like looking at these visuals actually, like there's a lot of scientific study that can create like positive, like, you know, even like color theory, like certain colors affect different emotions. Like I think me studying those aspects is like my way of feeling like I can help myself and others like through my art. But it's definitely like a concept that I think I am still like, again, like at the beginning stages of starting to understand. For so long I hid my depression, and right now, like the past 2 years, I've been so like over having to hide it. And since I've been getting so much positive feedback about sharing like these like struggles with mental health, I do just think like, yeah, I mean, there's no rules like to your healing. Like you just kind of have to do what you have to do. And I've chosen to be loud about it. And I don't think that's like normal. And I think it's been very difficult for me to be very open about those situations. But I just feel like it's not my choice. Like I have been put on this earth to be this like open and expressive. And I just hope that like people can see what I'm doing and they don't just see like this crazy cool art that's like should be, you know, on a gallery. It's like, damn, this is like just a real person like doing like her life, and it's not all that pretty. It's not all like rainbows and butterflies like all the time. But yeah, I guess that's a question that I kind of like was like steering around. I really need to think about that. I'm gonna write that down and I'm gonna come up with some more thought on that. I feel like that's a really intellectual conversation, you know, to have that I could probably, I would love to hear other artists like opinions on that as well.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I try to bring it up when I can with people because I know that a lot of us do suffer from this. It's not always something that's easy to talk about. But yeah, there are some past episodes that people brought it up. Um, and I think that what you said at the, first of all, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. It's not easy. But, being able to infuse a positive message for people, being able to give people iconography or imagery that can make them think about something outside of what they're going through. You showed it with the pill visuals and with lots of other your other visuals. I think it gives people, what do most depressed people need is support, right? Is a hug, is something to make them feel, not like an other, not like something's wrong with them. So I think that when
Yeah.
you allow that in your shows and your visuals, it gives people that feeling that they don't have to feel so alone and
Right.
so by themselves.
And I think for me, it's like sometimes easier to put into like this video specifically is like, you know, I feel like the issue with like nose drugs and like ketamine out in Colorado is so like strong right now, and it is like in Europe as well. And I love being able to like, this was like, I don't even know why, but one day I found a broken butterfly, like a dead butterfly, like washed up on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I just put it in a little plastic bag and kept it for so long.
Wow.
And then I came across it as I was moving out of my apartment. And I was just thinking, I'm like, what if I made this? Like, what if I acted like this? Like this whole idea came into me, and I was like shitting myself. Like, is this really going to go up on the Mission Ballroom screen? Like, is this art? Is this? But this clip to me was one of the most healing things that I have ever made, because, you know, I've struggled. I have a lot of friends that have struggled. And I just feel like putting that out there, that like, yeah, I feel like it's so okay to be struggling as long as you're not keeping it so deep within that it's going to like control you. Like for me, like making stuff like this, it just like allows me to tell people like they're not alone. And like I might seem like I'm coming off as like, oh, don't do all this stuff, but then you see something like this, I feel like people will be like, oh, she knows. Like that's Stef. Like that's like her broken butterfly, like through an addiction, through a tragic time in my life.
Powerful stuff. Speaking of butterflies and kind of maybe lightening up a little bit before we end here, because we're getting to the end, you talk a lot about the butterfly effect and the chaos theory, and your logo is a butterfly, and you're obviously a beautiful butterfly yourself. So yeah, I mean, like, how do you connect to that? Like, how do you ingest that into your visuals? How do you approach it in your life? The chaos theory and butterfly effect is something, it's not very esoteric. It's very like scientific, but it's hard to connect it to reality. It's hard to think like if I do something small, it's going to make a big impact, or it's hard to think that, through our actions, there are reactions, and those reactions don't always equate to the amount of action that we have. So there's a lot of stuff there to unpack and talk about. I'm just interested to hear your take on it, and tell me about you as a butterfly.
Yeah, so actually the butterfly was my first word, like 2-syllable word ever spoken. Like it was like
Nice.
Mom, Dad, butterfly.
Butterfly.
My mom said that she, like, I was in my stroller, she like pushed me into my sister's dance class one day, and there's butterflies like hanging from the ceiling, and I just look up and said butterfly. My mom was like, what the fuck? So it's actually like my mom will say that, like I love hearing that story from my mom too. So I feel like butterflies have always like resonated to me as like a symbol. And I feel like through college, when I was like trying to figure out my brand and stuff, like I also studied marketing a little bit, and I felt like, nature and like my tie to nature, like the brand had to be, obviously had to be symbolized by nature, and I wanted it to be a strong symbol. So the original logo was the flower of life with a butterfly drawn in the middle of it, and it was actually my first tattoo. So I like the connection of everything, the flower of life, all is connected. And then the butterfly being they live a very short lifespan. They're not permanent creatures. They are beautiful, delicate, and yeah, they, just symbolize transformation. And I feel like it was the perfect, I feel like it was the perfect cutesy little, idea to tie with my brand. And I don't think I've really seen like other artists with that like specific like butterfly like tie to it. So I thought it would also just be relatable and like brand really well. I'm gonna, push that aside because that's not important. But I really, was thinking of like what is going to make this brand last a lifetime. It's not something that's on trend. It's something that's meaningful to me, and it's something that is a concept that you can always go back to. Like chaos theory, my brother is in med school at University of Chicago right now, and he is the biggest like science, teaches me everything. He's so freaking brilliant. He's actually already a published research scientist at age 22, and he is working on he's working on research to basically find, I'm going to make him sound like not doing this justice at all, but he's basically finding, like, trying to create vaccines for incurable diseases, like doing God's work. So amazing. A lot of like the science aspect of like the brand comes from a lot of like my brother's influence, and like him kind of giving me like deeper meanings to, like, I'm a very spiritual person, he's a very scientific person, but he's also very spiritual, so we come together to create like these really cool conversations. So I was very, the butterfly was very like aesthetically chosen by me, but my brother was the first person who was like, well, you should brand this like chaos theory. And I've heard of chaos theory, but I really dove into the whole concept of it when my brother brought more attention to it. And this all happened. My grandma passed away during this time span of me developing my brand. And I remember sitting like at her funeral and getting like the download of it's Stef.FX. Like, it's Stef.FX, your name. We spelt it weird for this reason. And that's when I came up with like the name of the brand. And I felt like that was her like last gift to me to like start this artistic journey. And I really just like felt like it all kind of came together, like it was given to me more than like I came up with this cool brand idea. It was more like this was my whole life upbringing, and it was always surrounded, by being outside and exploring and like the innocent delicateness that like I feel like my parents tried to keep me so innocent for so long, and came into the sea so naive about the world, and I really like chased like learning about what the real world was, and like did not want to be like this delicate little thing that could be broken, because when I first started I was always being like, nobody cares about my art, like always super emotional about everything. And like I'm glad I haven't lost that, but I'm glad I've gotten tougher to be able to stick with the scene. And I started to realize it put me a little bit in a box to be just this butterfly of light, and like, the chaos theory, one small thing creates a big impact of change. And it felt very big limiting for me. And I felt like I couldn't live up to that positive like light force, because I was dealing with so much darkness. So I went back to kind of the drawing board about a year into the project, and went back to like, okay, this is nature. What, like, we have the butterfly, it's this light side of the project, but like, what is this darkness that I have inside me as well? And I always remember as a kid being kind of weird and like playing with bugs and spiders. And I was always like fascinated by finding like black widow nests. And always thought they were super cool. And when I started dating Austin, who passed away last year, his parents lived in, he basically grew up in Swanee. So like we went to like we were in Swanee for every single weekend, going to like that venue is just incredible, and becoming very one with nature. He taught me a lot about, I was I feel like, kind of like, what's the word, a little bougie for for like his world at the time. And he really showed me like like, yeah, you shouldn't be inside an AC. Like there's all this beautiful like things around you, and really became more in touch with nature through that friendship. And we would check out the Black Widows, like in his like area of the woods and stuff. And he was so crazy. He picked one up one day and he's like, they're so dangerous, and they're not, yeah, but you're like, they're okay. Like worst it'll do is bite you, and like it'll be fine. And I remember like being able to touch it and being like, whoa, like you're right. And he's like, but you shouldn't pick it up. I don't want you to like get bit. And we put it back down, and I was just like, damn, like this kid is fearless. Like that was like, and it's not gonna hurt you. It's just like, it was, yeah, obviously I'm not gonna go poking Black Widows now, but something that I was so like, I feel like terrified to touch, but like it was beautiful to look at. I always thought I was fascinated. I was no longer afraid of in general. And that became the darkness of my project. I branded it off of like the Black Widow, something that's so delicate and tiny that like is also so dangerous and we're so scared of, but we really should just like appreciate it because they're so important like to our ecosystem too.
Wow.
So I kind of tied that in so I could start doing more of like themes of like what I was fearing, like darker, like natural disasters. That became like the darker side of the project. And I feel way more whole now having kind of like those two symbolism and those two sides. But I always feel like the butterfly and chaos theory is like, that's the point of this project, is like putting visuals out there that aren't just visually like pleasing, and it's not based off of aesthetic. It's like, this is all coming from a part of my brain that is helping me get through stuff. It's like helping me remind myself of like, yeah, don't go back to that time, because remember, like you were fucking a mess back then.
Right.
And like just real art of like my authentic emotions, and like
Love it.
being able to put them somewhere instead of like having to feel it all the time. And I think that's like what the Butterflect is all about, is it's, you can put yourself out there, and that's going to cause other people to like be more comfortable with themselves, and really like whatever you put into the world is going to cause some type of change. And the only like the only bad, like if you don't do anything, there's not going to be any change. So totally. I feel like just even a little putting your art out there. I had a friend telling me the other day his dream was to be like a comic book like designer, like when he was younger, and he's fantastic at drawing. And he was like, yeah, I always like kind of want to get back to that and like post on Instagram, but like with all this AI stuff, no one would pay attention to it. And I was like, that's what they want you to think.
That's exactly, yeah, like, no, that's honestly, it's opposite.
Yeah, honestly, it's like, it's refreshing to like put like something out there that isn't like so overdone, and something that's like super meaningful to you. And that's the point, is just putting stuff out there. It's not necessarily about like who's gonna pay attention to this. So that's like, yeah, not the right, I feel like, intention to go into it. So I'm always just like, even just like a small little artistic activity is good for you, and like it can inspire other people to do it. I do think like the chain reaction of like putting art out there in general is impactful, and that everyone can, like anyone could go out and take these videos that I do, and I'm very like verbal about them, like anyone can do what I do. It's very like just about like finding your way of expressing yourself and doing it. Totally. It's a lot of people, I think the thing that holds them back is like the thought process of like, they have this idea, and once we have this idea, it's almost like this sense of satisfying because we've already done it in a way in our mind, but it's the action that holds us up and that causes so much like, I feel like stress So I think for me, like when I come up with an idea, I try to appreciate it. But I try not to give it any type of like satisfying like sensations until I've put it into motion, because putting it into motion is like the hard part. A lot of us like can be innovative thinkers, but not all of us can put it into motion.
Wow. Well, I mean, super potent, and you know, you're so inspiring, you're so confident, you're so authentic.
Thank you.
I really enjoy talking to you. You know, it's so refreshing to talk to people that have a lot to say, and it's a good thing for me. It's like a growth thing for me to like let people talk and listen, because sometimes I find it, not that I find it hard, but sometimes I just want to talk also. And when people have such interesting
I'll interview
things to say,
you next.
for sure. No, it's more like, you know, I like listening to you because I asked you about something specific, and then you kind of go in this like very interesting tangent where it's connected everything, but you're talking about something else that's still connected, and it's just kind of enjoyable to hear your thoughts, and I really appreciate you being so cool and open to it. So yeah, is there anything you want to share with us before we go? And you know, yeah, anything you want to plug? Just let's.
I guess I feel like something a lot of people like reach out to me about that like I don't always have the time and energy to like DM people about, is definitely like how I would say like how I go about getting bookings and how I like stick with things. And I always just try to say like putting your art out there and reaching out to people, like, and showing that like you can stand your own and like be responsible like during shows like can get you so far. Like totally. Showing your art, like breaking that barrier of being scared of like rejection is like the most powerful thing you can do as an artist, because you're always gonna face like people that don't like your stuff, but if people don't like it, it's a good thing, because it means it's like causing different like emotions, and it's causing some people to feel like they don't like it. Or there's always going to be someone that likes it to someone that doesn't like it, and things that create conflict or like create people like they want to think about it and not sure if that's what they like, but the person next to them thinks it's super cool. It starts conversations, you know, and I feel like everyone has something to say. Totally. And it's just getting past that fear of like putting yourself out there. And if you're scared of putting yourself out there like that, just do it faceless at first. That's like the most simple thing to go about it, and you'll be surprised how many people like don't give a fuck if you're a girl or a boy or literally whatever. You know, you could be a fucking horse as a VJ, I feel like, and they wouldn't know at first.
Like a Ratatouille version of a VJ. That'd be so funny.
We need that.
Well, yeah. Awesome, Steph. I really appreciate you coming on, and I had a really good time talking to you.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Wow. What an episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Man to Smash for the intro and outro music. Thank you to Sophie Holder for the amazing internship helping us with all the episodes. And thank you to the guests for coming on and spending time with us. See you next week.